Good evening and welcome to the full council meeting of Broadland District Council on Thursday the 30th of July 2020. My name is Councillor Karen Vincent and I'm Chairman of the Council. This council meeting is being held as a virtual meeting and live stream for the public to view on YouTube. Good evening and a very warm welcome to everyone joining us this evening from our live streaming link. Councillors, I would appreciate it if you'd work with me this evening to make this meeting run as smoothly as possible. I recognise that many of you are already seasoned users of remote meetings. However, the meeting etiquette can vary from one meeting to another. So with that in mind, a quick reminder of the meeting etiquette for this evening's meeting. Firstly, live streaming. As I said, this meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. Leah is our meeting host and is managing live streaming for us this evening. So councillors and officers, please be mindful of this. When your camera is on, we can all see you, and equally when your mic is on, we can all hear you. That takes us on to the chat. Please can you use the chat messaging function this evening if you wish to speak, and I will invite you in turn to address council. Please can you also use this function to let me know if you were a second a recommendation, for example. Thank you. So in terms of muting and unmuting, councillors, you will be responsible for muting and unmuting your own microphone this evening, although assistance will be provided with this if required, and Leah will kindly be helping us with that. In which case, if you receive a request on your screen for your microphone to be unmuted, please will you give permission to do so? And when you're not speaking, please ensure that your microphone is muted again to minimise background noise, as this can be distracting from the discussion and business of the council. Right, so no more ado, let's move on to the business of council this evening. I'm delighted to see so many of you here this evening. I hope you're enjoying a lovely warm evening and keeping well wherever you may be. Just to say that all councillors have been sent a paper copy of the agenda and a supplementary paper for urgent business this evening, so hopefully you have all received that. Thank you, Councillor Roper, for demonstrating you've received yours. And I'd just like to take a moment to thank officers for all their hard work in making these virtual meetings possible. There is an awful lot of work that goes into these, and we do appreciate that to enable us to continue to function, so thank you for that. Right, in terms of item 1 on the agenda, we will commence with a roll call to confirm attendance and to receive declarations of interest under agenda item 1. Councillors, you'll be called in alphabetical order. When your name is called, please will you unmute and acknowledge your presence. Here or present will be absolutely fine, and declare any declarations of interest that you may have in accordance with item 1 of the agenda. I will now ask our committee officer, Dawn, to proceed with the roll call of members. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Adams.
Here, no declarations of interest.
Thank you. Councillor Beadle.
Here, I declare that I'm a director of a company in receipt of grants operated through by the District Council. Thank you.
Councillor Brennan. Don't think I've seen Councillor Brennan.
No, I've not seen Councillor Brennan, Dawn.
Thank you. Councillor Britcher.
Here and nothing to declare.
Councillor Bullman.
Here, nothing to declare.
Councillor Catchpole.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Clancy.
Here, nothing to declare.
Councillor Cook.
I don't believe I've seen Councillor Cook, Dawn.
No. Thank you. Councillor Copplestone.
Here, and I have been in receipt of the business support grant. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Crotch.
Present and no declarations.
Councillor Emsell.
Here, nothing to declare.
Councillor Fisher.
Here, nothing to declare.
Thank you. Councillor Grattan.
Here, and I have been in receipt of the business support grant.
Thank you. Councillor Gurney.
I am here this evening and I have nothing to declare, thank you.
Councillor Hartley.
Here, nothing to declare.
Councillor Harrison. I don't think I've seen.
I don't think I've seen Councillor Harrison, Dawn.
No.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Hempsall.
I'm here. I'd like to declare a personal interest in the item on pavement licensing because I am a guide dog owner and a coordinator for the Norwich Guide Dog Forum.
Thank you. Councillor Holland.
Present, no declarations.
Thank you. Councillor Karimi Guvanlu.
Present and no declarations of interest.
Councillor Kelly.
Present, no declarations of interest.
Councillor King.
Here, no declarations of interest.
Councillor Lawn. Councillor Lawrence.
Here, no interest.
Councillor Judy Leggett.
I have seen Councillor Leggett.
Present and no declarations.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ken Leggett.
Councillor Leggett is there, Dawn.
Yeah.
Councillor Leggett, can you unmute yourself?
It's trying.
I'm trying to assist, but I'm unable to, Dawn. I can confirm he's there.
Can we come back to Councillor Leggett once he's been able to unmute? Is that possible?
Yes, we can just check if he has any declarations of interest later. Thank you. Councillor Mackie.
Here, Chairman, and it's a question mark whether it's a non-pecuniary interest in regards to item 17, given the content, and virtue of being a county councillor.
Sorry, Chairman, I think I have unmuted now.
Thank you, Mr. Leggett. Do you have any declarations to make?
Present and no declarations.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mancini Boyle.
Present and no declarations.
Councillor Murrell. I don't think I've seen him.
I haven't seen Councillor Murrell, Dawn.
Councillor Neeson.
Here and no declarations.
Councillor Nurden.
Present and no declarations.
Councillor Peck.
Here and no declarations.
Councillor Prutton.
Present and no declarations.
Councillor Riley.
Present and no declarations.
Thank you. Councillor Roper.
Present and no declarations. Can I also say Mr. Harrison was in our group meeting only a few minutes ago, so please keep an eye out for him. He might crop up.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ryman Tubb.
Here, no declarations of interest.
Councillor Shaw. Don't think I've seen him.
No, not seen Councillor Shaw.
No. Councillor Snowling, I think I've probably got apologies from. Councillor Snowling. Councillor J. Thomas.
Here, no declarations.
Thank you. Councillor Karen Vincent.
I'm present and I have no declarations of interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sean Vincent.
Present and no declarations of interest.
Thank you. Councillor Walker.
I haven't seen Councillor Walker.
Sorry, I've got apologies. Sorry, I've got apologies from Councillor Ward.
Yes, present, no declarations.
And Councillor Wymark.
Present, no declarations of interest.
Chairman, I just believe some members may have joined us since I've done the roll call. Is there anyone who's just joined us recently whose name I haven't called out? If they can confirm they have joined us and are in attendance.
Councillor Cook has just joined us. Just unmuting her.
Thank you.
Hi, apologies. I'm present and no declarations of interest.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dawn, I can see that Councillor Shaw is trying to join us. I don't know if he's managed to enter the meeting as yet.
No, he hasn't as yet, Chairman. We'll keep an eye out for him.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Chairman, that concludes the attendance call and the declarations of interest.
Thank you very much for that. So that now takes us on to item 2, apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence this evening?
Thank you, Chairman. I have apologies from Councillor Folger, Councillor Moncur, Councillor Snowling, Councillor Starling and Councillor D. Thomas and Councillor Walker.
Thank you very much. That now moves us on to item 3, to consider the minutes of the council meetings held on the 21st of May 2020 and the 30th of June 2020. We're required to approve the minutes by a roll call, and so it's my intention to take both sets of minutes together rather than have 2 roll calls if council is in agreement with that. Before we proceed to that, councillors, if you wish to raise any points of accuracy on either set of minutes, starting on page 8 of your agenda, would you please indicate now through the chat function? And I'll just wait a couple of moments just to see if anything comes up through the chat function. Could members who are not muted please mute? Thank you. Okay, I'm not seeing anything come through on as points of accuracy on either sets of minutes. So I'm taking that members are happy that they're a true record of the meetings held on the 21st of May 2020 and the 30th of June 2020. I'll now invite our committee officer to proceed to a roll call just to confirm that you're in agreement with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Adams.
In agreement.
Councillor Beadle.
Agreed.
Councillor Britcher.
Agreed.
Councillor Bullman.
Agreed.
Councillor Catchpole.
Agreed.
Councillor Clancy.
Agreed.
Councillor Cook.
Agreed.
Councillor Copplestone.
Agreed.
Councillor Crotch.
Agreed.
Councillor Emsell.
Agreed.
Councillor Fisher.
Agreed.
Councillor Grattan.
Agreed.
Councillor Gurney. Councillor Gurney, could you confirm you're happy with 2 minutes?
Yes, I have already. You obviously didn't hear for some reason.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Hartley.
Agree.
Mr. Harrison hasn't joined us, has he? No. Councillor Hempsell.
I agree.
Councillor Holland.
Agreed.
Councillor Karimi Gouvanlou.
Agreed.
Councillor Kelly.
Agreed.
Councillor King.
Agreed.
Councillor Lawn.
Agreed.
Councillor Lawrence.
Agreed.
Councillor Leggett. Judy Leggett.
Agreed.
Councillor Ken Leggett.
Agreed.
Councillor Mackie.
Agreed.
Councillor Mancini Boyle.
Agreed.
Councillor Murrell. Not here, sorry, Chairman. Councillor Neeson.
Agreed.
Councillor Nurden.
Agreed.
Councillor Peck.
Agreed.
Councillor Prutton.
Agreed.
Councillor Riley.
Agreed.
Councillor Roper.
Agreed.
Councillor Ryman Tubb.
Agreed.
Councillor J. Thomas.
Agreed.
Councillor Karen Vincent.
Agreed, thank you.
Councillor Sean Vincent.
Agreed.
Councillor Ward.
Agreed.
And Councillor Wymark.
Agreed.
Thank you, Chairman. That concludes that.
Thank you very much, Sean, for that. So that now takes us to item 4 of our agenda, and that's matters arising, if any, from those minutes. We can indeed say that there are some matters arising from the 21st of May meeting, minute number 137, governance arrangements for COVID-19. That's set out on the agenda papers before you on page 2. Councillors, you may recall that we discussed this at our May meeting, and we discussed that an amendment to those standard orders would be put forward and would come back to the next ordinary council meeting, which is this evening. I'll just invite the monitoring officer if she's want anything further to add to this item.
Thank you, Chairman. The only points to add, both the changes within here were raised by Councillor Justine Thomas and Councillor Nerdon. The changes have been shared with both councillors and I believe accepted. So I propose them as changes as we discussed at the meeting in May.
Thank you very much, Emma. I can see in the chat I also had a proposer from Councillor Nerdon and a seconder for the change from Councillor Thomas, Justine Thomas, who had raised those issues. So thank you very much. We have a proposer and a seconder. If there are any comments, would you put them in the chat now? I'll open it up to debate. I'll give it a moment or two. I can see nothing coming through. So I'm taking that members are happy with the amendments as set out on the agenda. Just go to the monitoring officer. We're asked to approve these changes. Do we need to do that as a roll call, or can we do it in another way?
I think, Chairman, as the proposer and seconder have proposed and seconded them, and they were the ones that requested the changes, and there's been no chat, I'm happy to show a raise of hands from all members, please, virtual or
Chairman,
real, please.
Sorry, if I can just interject there. Mr. Roper has said he's happy to do that without a roll call as the proposer of the motion. He just popped that in the chat room. So I think a show of hands on this occasion would be appropriate.
If I can just come in, I think it was Councillor Nerdon who proposed this one.
Okay.
I think so. I'll take your advice on this, Emma. I think you said that we're okay to go for a show of hands virtually.
We are.
Or,
yes,
so
please,
let's do
Chairman,
that, please.
Yeah. If all my members can raise their hands for me, just bear with me. That is, yep, that is unanimous, Chairman.
Thank you very much. So that now takes us on to item 5 on the agenda. You will see the chairman's or the civic engagement is set out on page 25. Just turn into that page now. I don't propose to read those out. You will see that generally we have a different way of carrying out our civic engagements with the social distancing that we have to do at the moment. So we have started to prepare videos, and we had commemorative video to mark the 75th anniversary of VE Day. We also did something similar for the Armed Forces Week, and also to raise awareness of our community COVID-19 Community Hero campaign, which I have to say has been extremely engaging and quite heartwarming to hear the stories that are coming back from our residents who have been supporting each other. And that's one thing I'd just like to make note of on HARE. It's not on the list of engagements because it happened last Friday, so it was just outside of the timeline for this. But I had the pleasure of spending the day with a number of our community heroes and present them with a certificate and their awards together with their local members. So thank you to the local members who came along on the day, and also to those who nominated those heroes. It really was quite a moving day, hearing the various stories and being able to spend time and hearing where people have gone above and beyond and selflessly helped others, undertaking some really vital work. So it was a wonderful day. We do have more heroes to present the awards to. Unfortunately, not everyone was able to attend on Friday, and over the coming days, and I will be presenting the awards and inviting the local member to join me to do so. So please watch out for emails from me to set those arrangements up. I think that's all from me on my civic engagements. So the Vice Chairman, I would not ordinarily invite the Vice Chairman to speak now. Unfortunately, Councillor Folger is unable to join us and has sent his apologies. So at this point, I'll invite the leader to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of updates really around Broadland growth, just to inform Council that the development that we undertook in Great Plumstead has now completed, and the 22 homes are finished, with most of them now being occupied or in the process of being occupied. So it's a successful development that Broadland Growth, the joint venture company that the council has with the Norse Group, has completed this development, and as I say, in the coming months we will be able to report back on the outcomes and the benefits that will bring back to the council. That's all I really need to say at this point in time, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Leader. That now takes us on to the members of the Cabinet. If I invite, would any of the members like to comment at this stage? If so, could you please raise your hand?
Chairman, we have Councillor Wymark, Councillor Coppleston, apologies, and then Councillor Leggett wishing to speak, please.
Thank you. Councillor Wymark.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to remind everybody that next Wednesday we've got the Wellbeing Panel at 6 o'clock, where we'll be looking at the rough sleeper statement for Broadland and South Norfolk, but also the Greater Norwich homelessness strategy. As you know, our first step team have made great strides really to help support people and get them off the streets and get them into better accommodation and help really point their lives in the right direction. So this is continuing that work and looking how we can work with our partners, or continue to work with our partners actually, to ensure rough sleeping and homelessness hopefully can be confined to history in the long term. I mean, that's a big statement, but maybe we can make moves towards that. If you can contribute, please attend. As I've always said, the Wellbeing Panel is open to all councillors. So even if you're not on the panel, please come along and you can contribute. You won't be able to vote, but you can contribute. So please come along if you can. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Wymark. Can you just remind us of the date of the Wellbeing Panel, please?
Yes, it's the 5th of August, Wednesday the 5th of August at 6 p.m.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you. I think that Councillor Judy Leggett was next. Councillor Judy Leggett.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to draw members' attention to the email which they should all received about Broadland's licensing policy, a copy of which was attached to the email. The licensing policy is up for review, and the dates are given in the covering email. There will also be a further communication to you all next week about this. So I hope those of you who are interested in this will reply to the consultation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leggett. I've just got a question from Councillor Riley regarding Councillor Wymark's.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a question to Fran, really. I will dial into that, Fran. Thank you for that information. I was also just wondering, Fran, I understand there's been a working group at work. I was just wondering, would they have concluded what they've been looking at? Would that be coming forward to this wellbeing panel?
Okay, Steve, if you're talking about the housing workshop, I mean, we're coming to a conclusion with that, and that will be coming to a future wellbeing panel, but not the one next week. Not the one next week, but it will become to future ones. We're just coming towards the end of the workshops, or we have finished the workshops. The last one was last night, and we'll be looking to put everything together so that we can present it to the council, so they know where we would like to go with it, and obviously give us their views and their comments. Okay.
So that'd be a future wellbeing panel.
It will be a future one, yeah. We haven't actually set the date yet, but it won't be next week. I can assure you of that. There's a lot more work to be done before we get to the wellbeing panel. We want to put it in a good place and a good shape, so that everyone understands exactly what we're looking to do and how we're looking to improve our service to our residents.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. And thank you, Councillor Judy Leggett, for your update as well. I think that now takes us on to Councillor Coppleston, who wanted to speak. Councillor Coppleston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to make members aware of £20 million of new grants announced by Simon Clarke MP today, which will help small and medium-sized businesses get grants of between £1,000 and £5,000 to help them access new technology, equipment and professional fees to get them on track and recover from the effects of coronavirus. This is on top of the £10 million package announced by the Minister earlier this month to help kickstart tourism industry and support the visitor economy. And I will make sure that this is communicated to our businesses on our weekly business support update. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Copplestone. That's very positive news, so thank you for that. I've got Councillor Lana Hempsell would like to speak also. Councillor Hempsell.
Thank you, Chairman. News from the Planning Department is that I'll be chairing the meeting of the Place Shaping Panel on the 10th of August, where we will look at the new development scheme, because that's had to be updated due to a delay in the local plan delivery. So as always, all members of the council are welcome to dial in. Same rules as with the wellbeing panel, only members of the panel will be able to vote. But I think Councillor Roper, you had a particular interest in the scheme, didn't you? We had a conversation about this a few weeks back, so you're welcome to attend. Secondly, there's an update on the design awards that we all love at the council due to the restrictions and social distancing and problems with judging the nominations. We have decided to postpone the design awards till next year. So we'll roll 2 years worth of designs and developments into one big award. So, to all members, keep an eye on nice developments and nice enhancements and things that you feel are particularly excellent in your awards. Make sure that they are nominated, and we look forward to a bigger and better celebration of what is amazing in design and conservation in 2021. So thank you, Chairman.
Chairman, may I just say that as chairman of the Design Awards Committee, I was consulted on this, and it is obviously a very sensible decision to make. But I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hempsell and Councillor Ken Leggett. Yes, I'm a member of that panel, vice chairman of that panel. I'm sad that it's not going ahead, but I can fully understand the reason for that. That sounds like a very sensible decision to make, given that we go into people's houses. That would be quite difficult at the moment. Thank you. Are there any other cabinet members wishing to speak? No. That leads me to the head of paid service. I'll invite the head of paid service to speak. Thank you.
Chairman, good evening, and thank you, councillors. Only one thing from me, really, which is to do with occupancy of the office. We continue to operate consistent with the government and LGA guidance, but we are looking at the potential and completing the risk assessments for how we bring people back into the office in a COVID environment. In the event that we are given the green light to do that, but also looking at how we moderate the way we work and take advantage of the lessons we've learned through the COVID environment. So we'll keep you posted on that, but I thought it worth just letting you know where we are and how we're looking to move forward. If there is any change, then that change is likely to be from the 1st of September onwards. But we do need to be mindful of contingency planning for any further peaks in the COVID virus and whether that then changes regulations again. But we'll keep you posted as we progress. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you for that update. Appreciate that. I can see a question in the chat from Councillor Roper. I'll invite Councillor Roper to speak.
Thank you. It's partially there been answered, Chair. I was going to ask about timescales because I think the pressure is on, given that most of the retail sector is now open. And as a resident said to me yesterday, I can go to a charity shop to buy a second-hand book, but people can't come to Broadland District Council to discuss, for example, their benefits face to face. So I think the sooner that we can open again in a COVID safe way, the better.
Thank you, Councillor Roper. Thank you. Right, so that concludes item 5, announcements, which then takes us on to item 6 of the agenda, and that's questions from the public. Do we have any questions from the public?
No, Chairman, no questions.
Thank you. So that's item 7, public speaking.
No.
None notified, I understand.
No public speaking, Chairman.
Sorry to talk across you there.
Okay.
Right, so that now takes us on to item 8, overview and scrutiny committee. I'll now invite the committee chairman, Councillor Riley, to present the minutes and the annual report. Councillor Riley. Oh, actually, before I do that, if I may, sorry. You'll see on the agenda, one of those meetings include an exempt, non-exempt minute. So a part of the minutes of 14th of July are exempt. So please, can you save any discussion on the exempt minute until we get to item 17 on the agenda? Sorry to jump in and cut across you there. Over to you, Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Chair. And I kind of already was going to say that when I got to it. So we are like minds. Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, on the first 2 bullet points there, 1 and 2, minutes from 9th of June, 30th of June, all matters resolved, and I'll just move those as such, Chair. And before I move on, do you want to clear that in any way?
I think we're just receiving the minutes tonight, so we don't have to vote on those.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll move on to the annual report. The forward in the annual report is really a sort of summary of the previous year. I won't quote that verbatim, but I would just like to highlight a couple of points from that, Chair, if I may. We have faced, of course, in this year, extraordinary times. There's been an extraordinary situation in terms of COVID, which I'll touch on in a moment. We also had an extraordinary situation at the beginning of May with the new committee. The vast majority of members on the ONS were new elected councillors coming straight onto the ONS committee. And I'd just like to say that I really do offer my tribute to them in the way that they've settled into that, the way they've had to learn fast and grasp the nature of ONS. We still have, moving forward, the situation in terms of more training. So clearly the budget needs to be there to ensure that more training for ONS is completed. That's got held up somewhat due to the extraordinary situation of COVID. In terms of COVID, our work programme has been held up over that as a natural course of events. However, we are beginning to move forward on it. But I think it'd be remiss of me, and on behalf of the committee also, not to send out a message here to all those that have been affected by COVID, and those that may have lost their loved ones in this, that the committee, and I'm sure the council would agree, our sympathy are with you, and that the council will do everything it can, and including the ONS, in terms of reviewing what has happened in COVID in the future. That was touched on back at the last extraordinary meeting that we had. There was a statement in there about ONS reviewing that in the future at the appropriate time, and we will do so for the interests of their residents and communities. And I'd like to just finish really by saying I've enjoyed my time as ONS chair. I wouldn't say it's not hard work, but it is. We've also had an extraordinary time, of course, in change of officers that have taken place as well, with bedding in around that. And I really do offer my appreciation to the officers for their support, and the committee members, and especially also to my vice chair, Tony Adams, who is a great asset to the committee and himself. And I moved the report to be tabled. It's there under page 41 and to be noted for information for the council. Chairman, thank you.
Councillor Riley, thank you very much for presenting your report this evening. I'm sure it is a very interesting and informative report, and we do appreciate that. So the council has noted your report. And I'd also like to echo the comments that you made. I'm sure we're all in agreement that our thoughts are with those who have suffered through the coronavirus pandemic, who have either lost loved ones or have been affected by that. So I'm sure we're all in agreement that our thoughts go to those families and those affected by that. But thank you for raising that. Well said. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
If there are no questions to Councillor Riley on his report, if he's happy to take any, then I will move on to item 9. Cabinet papers. They start on page 74 of your agenda papers, and I will now invite the leader to present the minutes from Cabinet. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Chairman. So I just ask Council to receive the minutes of the 16th of June, and just noting that the recommendation to Council from Cabinet that is in those minutes has already been dealt with in the meeting of the 30th of June of the full Council, so that item has already been actioned. I then move on to the second lot of minutes of the meeting dated the 21st of July. Again, part of these minutes are exempt, so we will receive those when we do the exempt items. But say the other ones I ask Council to receive. And then moving on to the first item of those for Council to deal with is to receive the recommendation from Cabinet on the Broadland and South Norfolk, our plan for recovery for the COVID-19 crisis, which you should all have before you, starting on page 76. And this is quite a comprehensive plan that outlines the key strategic 6 points that take forward the areas of recovery rolled around the 3 key themes of economy, communities, organisation and governance. The report itself highlights the key activities and the amazing work that our team have done through what has been unprecedented times with the COVID crisis. The report on page 80 also highlights a number of the challenges that we face going forward, but the report itself positions the key actions and the actions in the short term, medium term and long term that the Council will seek to do, linking those to a number of measures that will enable us to gauge the success of those actions, and where the actions need to be modified, updated or changed, then they can subsequently be done to hopefully improve our performance if that's necessary. So that's probably all I need to say about that. So I'd just like to recommend the plan to Council.
Thank you very much, Leader, for your presentation of that. I can see in the chat, Councillor Trudy Mancini-Boyle would like to second that item. Councillor Mancini-Boyle, would you like to speak now, or reserve your right and speak later if I can get my words out?
I'll reserve my right. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Mancini-Boyle. I can see a couple of people want to talk on this item. Before we do so, can we just make sure if it only refers to the non-exempt matters, anything under the exempt matters we'll take later in the agenda. Thank you. So I'll firstly invite Councillor Roper to speak. Councillor Roper.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I mean, I'll be wholeheartedly supporting this plan tonight and this report, and I'd certainly pay tribute to the work that all officers have done to put in the report, and also for all the work they've done for our community from the beginning of this pandemic, during and in the future. What I want to comment on is, because this will come back to us in September for the next version of it, is one or two points relating to that, which the leader and cabinet member might want to answer. The first one is just a question about this is a joint report with South Norfolk about whether there might be any circumstances in which these have to become individual reports, purely because in terms of a governance side of things, if there was, for example, a change of circumstances in one of the districts, an outbreak, for example, it does seem quite a clunky way of dealing with updating the report if it has to go through two councils, particularly if there is something district specific. I appreciate that there will always be a lot of commonalities between the two districts, but I do wonder if at some stage in the future, in order to make a more agile document and something which we can respond to specifically on one of the districts, it might be something considered that there'd be two separate documents. That's my first point. My second point is just some definition about what's long-term, short-term, and medium-term in terms of the objectives, just so that the public can be clear about how quickly things are actually going to be delivered on the plan. And the third aspect, which I'll throw up, is we have performance measures, but what we don't have is actually what good performance would look like necessarily within those, or any targets. And that might be, again, be something to consider for the report when it comes back to us in September. Just moving on into some slightly wider things, I certainly support what it says in there about telephony and in terms of how to contact our officers, and a rollout hopefully very soon of soft telephony, which allows better communication with all officers, because at the moment it's to those who have got mobile phones and those who answer their emails, and we probably do need to step that up as quickly as possible. I would also just like to raise one or two other things. One of them is about on the infrastructure side of things. We mentioned a lot about roads and physical infrastructure, but we don't actually mention broadband, which is vital infrastructure now, particularly with a lot more of our residents having to work from home and the number of not spots. So I wonder if that could be looked at for the next iteration of the plan. Likewise, there's no real mention about transport and public transport and how we support that sector going forwards, because of course not all of our residents who need to get to work have got a car, and we know the public transport sector has been under a lot of pressure.
Okay, Councillor Roper, I'm going to stop you at that moment because that's quite a wide-ranging list of points that you raise, and there may be a number of different members who want to respond on those. So if you could pause at that point and we'll see who's able to answer the questions that you've raised. I think there's 4 or 5 there. So who can I invite to respond on those?
Me.
Right, Leader, would you like to respond? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Roper, for raising those questions. And I'd just like to take this opportunity to congratulate you on becoming leader of the Liberal Democrat group here at Broadland, and look forward to your active participation and active debate as we go through and take forward the different aspects of the business that Broadland does. Picking up your questions in reverse order, just seems to be a way of doing it. First one around public transport is really beyond the scope of the district. That falls as a county activity, as you will know from your role as a county councillor. Obviously, as a district, we will lobby and try to ensure that the public transport aspects are taken forward, both by county and also by the private enterprises that deliver the public transport activities. But that is pretty much beyond the scope of what we could do in this recovery plan. Regarding the infrastructure, you specifically focused on the broadband, and at the Economic Success Panel that was held last week, the project lead for the better broadband across Norfolk Karen O'Kane reported back to the panel to inform the panel of where they were with their rollout and the coverage across Norfolk. There may be some more elements that the portfolio holder can bring to that around the specifics of that presentation, but my understanding is at this point in time for Broadland we now sit at 98% coverage from what she said at that meeting, but as I'll leave it for the portfolio holder to add in more on that point when I've finished. Again, I support you on your comments with the telephony, and we're keen to see the telephony and the infrastructure that requires rolled out to enable our officers to function more effectively and more efficiently, and to enable them to work remotely. This is an ongoing process. The investment, as you know, has been approved as part of the IT strategy, and the team are working to implement that with speed and due diligence as fast as they can. The last one you mentioned was around the report itself, covering both Broadland and South Norfolk, and while it does cover both districts, there's no reason why there can't be anything in there that is district specific, either for Broadland or for South Norfolk. So therefore, I don't envisage there being a need to split the reports at any point in time, but there could be actions that come through that are then implemented in one or other of the districts rather than both. So I think that picks up your questions, other than the time scale of short, medium and long. I would give you the standard answer for those, with short being 0 months to 3 months, medium being 3 to 6, and long term being anything after 6 onwards. The problem we've got is these are, as I said before, unprecedented times. We really don't know where we're going to be in 2 months' time. I think the one thing we do know is the world is not going to be full of roses, and we are not going to be out of the woods just yet. So while we would envisage the short, medium and long-term implementation of the approaches in that way, it may not be feasible or possible, hence the reason the plan will remain fluid and have to be updated probably quite regularly, and will come back to us in September for any updates, changes and new actions that we need at that point in time. Hopefully I've covered your 5 questions. I don't know if the portfolio holder for economic success wants to just come in and pick up any more details on the better broadband for Norfolk, or if I've already said enough.
Thank you very much, Leader. That's really kind. We did talk about this at Economic Success panel last week, and I've had a subsequent meeting with Karen O'Kane yesterday, just updating me. The highlight report for Better Broadband for Norfolk was sent out to members of the panel, and I can confirm what the leader said. Our expectation was to reach 97% of those properties with at least 15 megabits per second, and that's been exceeded with 98%. I quite understand Councillor Roper mentioning that infrastructure has changed slightly, and hard infrastructure perhaps isn't quite as important as we go to an online world. We have a strategy for broadband with the economic development team, and that will be communicated to business through the weekly business support updates. More information will come out from Karen O'Kane, exactly how many properties are below 15 megabits in the autumn. But preceding that, we will be talking to businesses on industrial estates and town centres to see what FTTP they've got, and we will be moving very quickly on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Leader, and also to Councillor Copplestone for the update on broadband. I'm just looking in the chat and I can see a number of people want to speak, and linked with the questions from Councillor Roper. So I'm initially going to go to Trevor Holden, and then I have Councillor Emsell who would like to speak. Trevor.
Chairman, thank you. I was just going to offer the leader's support in terms of timescales, but he's obviously adequately covered that. The key point here is that we are in a dynamic environment. We don't know what the autumn's going to hold, but I'd like to assure Council that there will be quarterly updates to keep them posted as we progress and as things change. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for confirming there'll be quarterly updates. That's very helpful. Thank you. Councillor Emsell, I believe you wanted to speak. Was that in response to Councillor Roper's question?
I was just going to say that I think this is an excellent document that brought together a lot of information that was constantly changing. And I was just going to thank our officers for managing to pull all that changing information together and get it out into a coherent plan for us. Obviously, things will change constantly. We've seen that just this last week with the different travel information that's come out from government. The plan will constantly change. There will be constantly updates, and I'm really thankful for the officers to go through it all and get it into a plan that we can work with, and that will be bringing us forward, understanding how we move forward. So I think it's really good. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, Councillor Emsell. Right, Councillor Lawrence, I believe you've been waiting a little while to raise a question. Councillor Lawrence.
Hi, yes. Thank you. Yeah, before I just ask my question, I'd like to resonate on the comment in terms of the report. It was impressive to see and great to have an overview so quickly of what has been achieved, and not an easy feat. Just a question really, I suppose, and a point perhaps going forward. A point of concern really is just in terms of ensuring that there's a balance with the environment. So I was, although we've got the kind of, community, economy and society, COVID itself has highlighted the importance not only of access to nature to our communities, but also the fact that our recovery needs to be ensured that it's sustainable. Otherwise, we just cause greater problems further down the line in other areas as we go forward. So it would be really good to have that reflected, especially I would say sort of on page 84 and 85, which is around the sort of, in terms of the communities and around long-term, sort of the mental health actually being enabled through our, increasing access to nature and ensuring that is upfront and incorporated within that, so we don't forget that as we go forward, because it will it's easy done, but fundamental that we don't.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lawrence, for your comments. Does anyone want to respond to Councillor Lawrence? Leader?
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Lawrence, for raising the environment within the recovery, and especially the way in which we have now a greater affinity with it and a greater demand on it as far as being able to access and make use of. And I think that just highlights perhaps the way in which Broadland is keen to enhance its green infrastructure before actually the COVID crisis. And our actions have shown that we had the foresight perhaps to realize that the green infrastructure is as important as any of the hard infrastructure. So things like the country park that we recently purchased and is coming forward will bring a great deal of benefit to residents of Broadland. Again, with the Bure Valley Railway and the enhancements to the Bure Valley Path that is being undertaken, also with the Little Plumstead Hospital and the enhancements that have been done there within the woodland area, all show the key aspects of driving forward the environment as part of a sustainable package of a sustained recovery. And also, should there be a further wave of coronavirus later this year, we would anticipate the usage of such areas to be further required as the people seek more local areas to enjoy recreation and to hopefully improve their well-being by getting outside as much as they can in a safe environment that hopefully we can continue to ensure is as safe as possible for them to do just that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leader. Thank you. If there are no further questions, I'll go back to
Chairman,
Councillor.
Catchpole, you've got a comment from.
Yes, I've just seen that. Thank you very much, Dawn. Thank you. Councillor Catchpole, I believe you want to say something.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just wondering where within this, or whether it can be included in this or incorporated, to have some focus on the timely communication of more local information on infection rates and the geographic spread of the virus and the testing of people for the virus, and how we're going to drill down into those more localised pieces of information that people are desperate for.
Thank you, Councillor Catchpole. I don't know if I can invite the Managing Director to reply to that one.
Chairman, yes, hopefully I can give a satisfactory answer. So there is a thirst for data and there is a thirst for locality data, and to a degree the picture continues to emerge and progress, both in terms of the locality of the data and the timeliness of the data. That's controlled through the Norfolk Outbreak Board, which has got the professional officers represented from public health, officer from each district, and is really trying to hone down as far as possible to understand how quickly we can start to monitor or progress if there is any sign of an outbreak. The district councils are particularly supporting that work with the support of our environmental health officers in helping to do that track and trace. So you'll know if you've been to a public house or other places that they record your details. And this is the normal process that would have been undertaken, for example, pre-COVID, if there'd been, I don't know, a dodgy meal at a restaurant or the like. But it's really important that we continue to press to get that really tight locality data in a timely fashion so that outbreaks can be controlled. There's another layer to that process, which includes the leaders of the county council and the district councils by way of a political oversight of that. But the authority for any outbreak control, the decision maker, sits with the upper tier authority, primarily led by the data that public health have access to. I hope that's helpful. It's not a complete answer to your question because we still require greater data in a more timely fashion to a tighter location. But that's the structure that we've got across Norfolk, which is common, I think, across most LRF areas.
Thank you very much, Managing Director. Does that answer your question, Councillor Catchpole, as far as we possibly can at the moment?
Yes, I understand. I think about the difficulty in gaining the information, but I'm wondering if it can be perhaps the focus as this goes forward on how to impart that information to our residents.
Chairman, if I could respond. So the local outbreak board will deal with that, and sometimes we think of it about as a geography, but it's more likely seen that actually there'll be centres or sources for the outbreaks in the same way as you might a restaurant. So those things will be tracked and traced, and the individuals contacted by people like our environmental health officers or contact centres to say, actually, you need to lock down. I'm not aware that there's actually a policy in place to say that unless we get to a level where we have to have a localized lockdown on a place rather than an individual, of an intent or a means even to actually say to a village or a town, we need to lock you down, because actually, that decision is, as I say, made by the upper tier authority, and we would be some way downstream before the outbreak board got to that place, because they'll be focused on, actually, there's something that's emanated from this location or that location in terms of, is there a commonality? So one of the things you might have seen on the media is hostels, or places where we've got, there's been a lot of work with fruit pickers and the like, making sure that we're making the spread of the virus as difficult as possible. I'll obviously take the councillors' comments back to the outbreak board, but I don't believe at the moment there's an intent to convey that information. I'm not sure it would be that useful at this moment in time.
Thank you very much, Managing Director. Well, I think we've given that a good debate, so I'm now going to go back to Councillor Mancini-Boyle, who reserved the right to speak.
No, everything's fine. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. On that basis, I'll go back to the leader if he wants to sum up before we go to the vote.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, that was a useful questions, and that gives us some information that we can feed back to the different groups and the different agencies involved in the different processes at this point in time. So thank you for that. I just again come back to the two recommendations on page 74, 8.1 and 8.2. Would recommend those to council, and I believe Trudy Mancini-Boyle, Councillor Trudy Mancini-Boyle has already seconded those.
Thank you very much, Leader. Yes, we did have that seconded by Councillor Mancini-Boyle. So, councillors, you have the two recommendations in front of you. They're on page 76, and they're also replicated on the bottom of page 3 of your agenda. So at this point, I will invite the committee officer to take the roll call so that we can vote on this, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So it's Councillor Adams.
Four.
Councillor Adams, can you indicate if you're for? Sorry, that was a 4, was it? Thank
That
you.
was indeed, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Beadle.
4.
Councillor Brennan.
Councillor Brennan is having internet issues, Dawn. I think he's just dropped his connection.
Okay, we'll bypass that. Councillor Britcher.
4.
Councillor Bullman.
4.
Councillor Catchpole.
4.
Councillor Clancy.
4.
Councillor Cook.
4.
Councillor Copplestone.
4.
Councillor Crotch.
4.
Councillor Emsell.
4.
Councillor Fisher.
4.
Councillor Grattan.
4.
Councillor Gurney.
4.
Councillor Hartley.
4.
Councillor Harrison.
4.
Councillor Hempsell, can you confirm that you were in the meeting for that discussion? I think we may have potentially lost you at one point. I'm not sure if you were with us or...
Yeah, I popped up for 2 minutes and then forgot that I didn't have my video on. So I was here listening, and then I caught a message from the monitoring office. So I was like, oh my God, yes, no, I have been here. So yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm happy to take your vote.
Yes, I am 4.
Thank you very much. Councillor Holland.
4.
Councillor Karimi Guvanlu.
4.
Councillor Kelly.
4.
Councillor King.
4.
Councillor Lawn.
4.
Councillor Lawrence.
4.
Councillor Leggett. Judy Leggett.
4.
Councillor Ken Leggett.
4.
Councillor Mackie.
4.
Councillor Mancini-Boyle.
4.
Councillor Neeson.
4.
Councillor Nerdon.
4.
Councillor Peck.
4.
Councillor Pretton.
4.
Councillor Riley.
4.
Councillor Roper.
4.
Councillor Ryman Tubb.
4.
Councillor Shaw.
4.
Councillor J. Thomas.
4.
Councillor Kay Vincent.
4.
Councillor Sean Vincent.
4.
Councillor Ward.
4.
And Councillor Wymark.
4.
Chairman, that's unanimous.
Chair, may I just add my apologies again, my internet was failing and I'd like to register 4.
Thank you, Chairman.
Do we just need to check whether Councillor Brennan was there for the debate?
Yes, please, Chairman. Can you confirm, Councillor Brennan, that you were there for the debate on the item?
I was here for the debate. I just lost it at the last sort of 10 seconds.
Lovely. Thank you, Councillor.
Okay. Thank you for confirming that. Committee Officer, you said that was carried, yes?
Yes, Chairman, it was unanimous.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. So that now takes us on to minute 10 of the Cabinet papers, and that was environmental strategy. Is that Councillor Judy Leggett wishing to speak to this one?
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chairman. The environment is something that is great interest to all of us. And I thank the previous speakers who referenced the importance of the environment and the green spaces in the COVID recovery plan. It's also of great interest to young people. I was speaking to a member of the Broadland YAB the other day who was very keen to arrange litter picks. And currently the youth group in Sproston has produced models made from plastic rubbish to highlight environmental issues. I'm very pleased to present this Broadland environmental strategy to you today. I believe it's what we want for our residents and what the residents want for themselves. The document you've seen in your papers, and it does look a bit better than it does in the photocopied version, and you probably have seen it on your iPads. Anyway, that document still needs some minor amendments, as was discussed at Cabinet. The majority of them are really presentation issues. However, there was one major omission, which was sustainable investments. And we asked at Cabinet and agreed that that should be inserted again. It was in a previous version. And we also want to add an addendum, what we have done to date. So examples like the Howden plantation. I do trust that this work will be resourced appropriately as the strategy cuts across all sectors of the Council. So it needs a coordination role to bring the strands together, to promote the environmental strategy, to report on progress, capture green ideas from our officers, from our residents, from the government. So today I recommend the attached document, subject to the amendments detailed at Cabinet. And I look forward to progress being reported at future Council meetings. I propose that the strategy be adopted by the Council today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Judy Leggett. You have a proposer. Do we have a seconder? Yes, I can see in the chat. Councillor Mancini-Ball, that you would like to second, and you'd also like to reserve the right to speak. So thank you, you preempted me. So thank you for that. I'll open it up for questions and debate. Would anyone like to speak on this? Councillor Karen Lawrence first, and then Councillor Emsell to follow. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Judy. It's good to see that we've got the environmental strategy and that it's a working document. I just wanted to voice a little bit more frustration about kind of, I suppose, some of the process. I understand that the South Norfolk are no longer joining this particular strategy. And I find it a little bit, I suppose, a lesson in terms of working together, in that as a process, we've made sort of certain compromises going forward to accommodate South Norfolk, and then they've sort of withdrawn from the overall document because they haven't liked what it looks like, which is their right. However, it means that we've still got the compromises that we would have gone through. Or may not have gone through if we had worked it through more on our as a single council. I mean, it's less impactful on this particular document because it is a work in progress, and it's seen as a document that will evolve as we go through as a council. But I do want to just voice a little bit of a frustration at that kind of process, that we seem to end up with slightly more watered down version of what we may have obtained if we had worked through on as a single council. So as a note, I suppose, going forward to other sort of working groups, that that's something to bear in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Councillor Judy Leggett, did you want to come back on that at all?
Yes, I quite understand Councillor Lawrence's frustration, and it does seem that this environmental strategy has taken a long while to get to a state that we feel reasonably happy with. I just echo your comment that it is a living document. It will be coming regularly to the Environment Excellence Panel, and I'm sure we shall have some rather robust debates on how we can improve the document going forward, and also on what progress we've made. I hope we'll be making progress quite quickly now. Thank you.
Sorry, rookie error, I was muted. Apologies for that. I'm unmuted now. I've got Councillor Nigel Brennan and Councillor Jonathan Emsell to speak. Councillor Brennan? I think we've lost Councillor Brennan, have we?
I think we just lost him.
Yeah, he'd indicated he wanted to speak. He raised his hand. Councillor Emsell, I think you also had a question, or you'd like to speak.
It's just a question for Judy, really. At Cabinet, you talked about the lack of resource on producing the environmental strategy. Although climate change work has been held up by the COVID crisis, I'd just like to think, we should be resourcing it correctly, and moving forward, will this be something that we will be able to do?
Thank you, Councillor Emsell. Councillor Judy Leggett, did you want to respond to that?
I agree entirely with Councillor Emsell's comment, and perhaps I can pose the question to the Managing Director, please. And I would like his assurance that we will be suitably resourced on this front. Thank you.
Managing
Chairman,
Director, thank you.
Chairman, if I might respond, I think this is a circular argument because Council, of course, set the budget and the business plan. So I look forward to making sure that we have the right resources to deliver the plans within the budget as set by Council, as best as I can offer you this evening.
Thank you, Managing Director. I think we now have Councillor Brennan back in the room. Councillor Brennan, you wanted to speak?
Yeah, sorry, Chair. I'm really struggling with the internet tonight, which is most unusual. Just a question for the portfolio holder. As a member of ONS, we consider the Cabinet paper accompanying the strategy which was discussed at ONS. Section 3.2 drew attention to the lack of dedicated staff. Has resource been allocated to this vital work, please?
Councillor Brennan, I think while you're out of the room, we were discussing this, but Councillor Leggett, did you just want to add to that?
The Managing Director has assured us that the business plan will be suitably resourced. I think that's putting it succinctly.
No, thank you, portfolio holder. That's lovely. I'm sorry that the internet keeps dropping out tonight. My apologies.
No problem at all. It's good to see you back in again. So thank you for asking the question while you were here.
Hopefully we'll be here for the rest of the night.
Thank you. Thank you. I've got Councillor Dan Roper wishing to speak. Councillor Roper.
Thank you, Chair. It's a question to the portfolio holder in terms of the strategy going forwards and different patterns of consumption and waste arising from the COVID pandemic, both in terms of how households are consuming more and throwing more out, and also the amount of PPE equipment and masks containing plastic that are ending up in the waste chain now, and about how that might be incorporated in the strategy going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Roper. Councillor Judy Leggett, I invite you to reply.
I would have to do some more research on the PPE side. Anecdotally, I was talking to the Veolia manager recently, who tells me that recycling is probably up about 15%, and residual waste perhaps is only up 5%. And I thought that was quite good news, because I was afraid that the residual waste would be up a lot more. But anyway, we will wait the final figures. But I will do some more investigation on the PPE disposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Judy Leggett. Anecdotally, I was speaking to one of the crew of our Veolia, our refuse collectors, on Friday, and they confirmed that the recycling is definitely up at the moment. It's probably about 50%, so from their view. Right. Are there any other questions to put forward to... I've got Councillor Gurney.
Thank you. This may be slightly off track, but I am, this is for Judy with environmental issues in Veolia, etc. But I'm extremely concerned that we've now suspended people's ability to order a brown bin for the next 3 weeks, because there is either a backlog or over demand. Is there an opportunity to resource this even further so that my residents stop complaining to me about having to wait 3 weeks until August the 17th before they can order a brown bin? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gurney. I'll invite Councillor Judy Leggett to reply if you're able to. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Councillor Gurney, you felt you had to wait till tonight to tell me this. It is news to me, and I can assure you I shall be investigating tomorrow morning.
If I may, Chairman, just come back. It's actually on our website and it was put on yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gurney, for your comments on that, and thank you, Councillor Leggett, for taking that one away. I've got a couple of people wishing to speak. I've firstly got Councillor Catchpole, and oh no, the other's a comment. So Councillor Catchpole.
Thank you, Chair. On page 97, under working with our communities, there's a very short paragraph explaining, I think, how the messages will be conveyed, the messages under the headings in each section. How will you help us? Which are the key messages for our residents. I think that very short paragraph should and could be looked at and expanded greatly, so that the focus is on how do we change the behaviour of our residents, and how are we going to get that, what we need them to do, across to people, so that they know exactly what they can do, because people are asking, what can we do? They really want to know. So I just think that's a important part of this report, should be how we're going to actually try and do that.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Catchpole. Councillor Judy Leggett, would you like to respond?
Yes, I'd be delighted to. I think I've got two points to my answer. One, I think what we can ask people to do can be suitably highlighted in the finished document, as I was saying in the presentation. And as soon as we are able to, we will be certainly working on the recycling and to cut down on contamination. So we have plans in place, and these plans will be replicated in the action plan, which is at the end of the document, which still needs to be populated.
Thank you, Councillor Judy Leggett. I think we've given this a really good debate, so thank you very much, councillors. We have the proposer, Councillor Judy Leggett, and we had Councillor Mancini-Boyle second this and reserve the right. Councillor Mancini-Boyle, would you like to speak?
Yes, I would. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. I would just like to reiterate the sustainable investment, really. That is something that I'm particularly interested in. There's quite an innovative idea at the moment of a local government green bond to help with green infrastructure. And that is something that I particularly would like Broadland to investigate. So just to reiterate that, but other than that, yes, I'd just like to second. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mancini-Boyle. So back to you, Councillor Judy Leggett. Do you want to just sum up before we go to the vote?
I think it's essential that we approve it and get on with the work. Thank you.
And that's subject to the amendments that you said that were agreed at Cabinet. Yeah, just picking that up. So we've heard we're being asked to approve the report subject to the amendments that were agreed at Cabinet. Are we clear about that, and are we happy to go to the vote? Okay, I will invite the committee officer to call the roll to take the vote on this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Adams.
4.
Councillor Beadle.
4.
Councillor Brennan.
I believe he's just lost connection again.
Okay, I'll come back to him. Councillor Britcher.
4.
Councillor Bullman.
4.
Councillor Catchpole.
4.
Councillor Clancy.
4.
Councillor Cook.
4.
Councillor Copplestone.
4.
Councillor Crotch.
4.
Councillor Emsell.
4.
Councillor Fisher.
4.
Councillor Grattan.
4.
Councillor Gurney.
Councillor Gurney, are you able to unmute yourself, please?
Have 4.
Thank you. Councillor Hartley.
4.
Councillor Harrison.
4.
Councillor Hempsell.
4.
Councillor Holland.
4.
Councillor Karimi Guvanloo.
4.
Councillor Kelly.
4.
Councillor King.
Councillor King, are you able to unmute?
Councillor King, could you give me a hand wave to say you're in support, because I can't hear you at the moment? Thank you. Councillor Lawn.
4.
And Councillor Lawrence.
4.
Councillor Judy Leggett.
4.
Councillor Ken Leggett.
4.
Councillor Mackie.
4.
Councillor Mancini-Boyle.
4.
Councillor Neeson.
4.
Councillor Nurden.
4.
Councillor Peck.
4.
Councillor Prutton.
4.
Councillor Riley.
4.
Councillor Roper.
4.
Councillor Ryman Tubb.
4.
Councillor Shaw.
4.
Councillor J Thomas.
4.
Councillor K Vincent.
4.
Councillor S Vincent.
4.
Councillor J Ward.
4.
And Councillor Wymark.
4.
Chairman, with the exception of Mr Brennan, who I don't think was able to vote at that time, that's unanimous.
Thank you very much, Dawn, for confirming that for us. Thank you. So that now takes us to item 10 on our agenda, and that's a planning committee. I will now invite Councillor Lawn, committee chairman, to present the minutes. Councillor Lawn.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Councillor Lawn, you were extremely quiet then, and I don't think the committee heard what you said.
Yeah? Can you hear me now?
Slightly better.
I don't know what's happened. I'm really sorry. But all matters were resolved.
Thank you. I heard that, and I'll repeat what Councillor Lawn said. She said all matters are resolved. That was right, what you said, wasn't it? Yeah, thank you. So all matters resolved. Thank you very much, Councillor Lawn. That takes us to item 11 of our agenda, and that's the annual report of the Audit Committee. I will now invite Councillor Nurden, Committee Chairman, to present the annual report. Councillor Nurden, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Just one thing I'd like to just clarify before I present the report, and that is that the agenda does say that it is just to note the contents of the annual report, whereas the actual report itself says that the recommendation is that the Audit Committee recommends for Council to note and approve the contents of the annual report. So can I just get that clarified before presenting the report?
Thank you very much, Councillor Nurden. I'll invite the monitoring officer just to help me clarify that point, please.
Of course, Chairman. The Council is requested to note the report that Councillor Nurden will be presenting to you, so there will be no need for a roll call this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Monitoring Officer, and thank you, Chairman. Right, I'd like to present the annual report of the Audit Committee to Council. Just a few things to highlight in the report. Our terms of reference emphasises that the committee is to champion governance arrangements at the authority and to follow best practice. Some of the reports that the committee worked through during the previous financial year include a review of the annual statement of accounts, the annual governance statement, the commercialisation strategy, and the new contract standing orders. I want to thank all the members and the substitutes of the committee, as well as the officers, for all their hard work during the course of the year. And thank you, Chairman. And I welcome any comments or questions on the annual report before it being noted.
Thank you very much, Councillor Nurden, for presenting the report. And I can see in the chat function, Councillor Mancini-Boyle would like to speak. Councillor Mancini-Boyle.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I just wanted, as the finance portfolio holder, to thank Councillor Grant Nurden as Chairman and the whole of the Audit Committee for the hard work, the diligence they put into their work, and long may that continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Thank you, Councillor Mancini-Boyle, for your comments, and as a member of that committee, it's nice to hear those comments, so thank you very much. Councillor Grant Nurden, did you want to come back on that at all?
I just wanted to say thank you to Councillor Mancini-Boyle for those kind words.
Thank you. So we're all very grateful. Thank you very much. I can't see anyone else wishing to speak at this point. So Council has noted that report. Thank you. That now takes us on to item 12 of the agenda, and that is the Monitoring Officer's report. I'll invite the leader to present that report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So the report starts on page 134 that's before you, and this outlines some changes to the Joint Lead Member Group, the Planning Committee and the Internal Drainage Board. I'd ask Council to confirm the requests for these changes. The recommendations are at the bottom of page 135, 5.1 and 5.2, which is to approve the amendments to the appointments of the Joint Lead Member Group and the Planning Committee, and then 5.2 is to approve the amendments to the appointment of the outside organisations and Internal Drainage Board. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leader. Do you propose that? Do you have a seconder to your Councillor Lana Hempson? You're seconding that. Thank you. Right, so we've got a proposer, we've got a seconder. I'll open it up for debate. Councillor Dan Roper, you'd like to speak on this Monitoring Officer's report. So over to you, Councillor Roper.
Thank you, Chair. And it's to make an amendment to the first proposal. Just to do a bit of housekeeping, really, because it makes sense to update the Liberal Democrat memberships alongside these changes. So to change number 1 to approve the amendments to the Joint Lead Member Group and Planning Committee proposed by the Leader, and the attached schedule of Liberal Democrat committee changes proposed by the Leader of the Opposition. And I believe the committee team has got a copy of those they can put on the screen, and I'm happy to read them out.
Sorry, Councillor Roper, do you have a seconder to your amendment?
I believe it's Councillor Catchpole. Or Councillor Beadle just waved.
Yeah,
could you,
in the absence of Councillor Catchpole getting unmuted, I'll second.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to invite the monitoring officer to speak. I'm not sure how we deal with this because this feels to me like it's urgent business. I haven't, the committee members, or council members I should say, haven't seen the changes that are being proposed. I hear what you're saying, Councillor Roper, but I'm just going to refer to the monitoring officer for advice on this one, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. As Councillor Roper has pointed out, he would like to propose an amendment as he has highlighted, and he has a seconder in Councillor Beadle. This wasn't received as a late item as it didn't meet the criteria for a late item, as we discussed, Chairman, to be added to the agenda. What Councillor Roper is enacting here, as I believe, is section 15.6 of part 4 of the procedure rules, brackets 3, whereby he is able to make an amendment to a recommendation to either leave out words, and insert or add others, or to insert or add words. Therefore, I believe that's an amendment that we can now debate and vote on in the council chamber, Chairman.
The other point, the monitoring officer, Councillor Roper mentioned about putting we don't know what we're debating on because we haven't seen what those amendments are, and I think it's part of the problem. I know Councillor Roper actually asked your advice before the meeting whether it could be added as a late item, and he'd had the response that it couldn't be added as a late item. So we're obviously, this is a different approach to get it on the agenda. Is there a way of showing what those items are that we are considering?
Of course there is, Chairman. I'm just going to look to Dawn to see if she's able to share screen. If she's not, I'm able to. Dawn, are you able to share your screen, or would you like me to?
Chairman, I'm just going to give it a go, so just bear with me just a second. And can anyone confirm that they can see my screen? No, that's not.
Councillor Roper, can I request, as we are struggling with the technology to share the screen, we will get the screen shared. Okay. Could you take the council through, please, the changes that you are proposing? And we have those in front of us. Thank you, Dawn.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There we go,
so
sorry.
On awards, Councillor Lawrence replaces Councillor Catchpole. On CIEC, Councillor Holland for Councillor Neeson. ONS, Councillor Karimi Guvenlu for Councillor Beadle. Place Shaping Panel, Councillor David Thomas for Councillor Neeson. Wellbeing Panel, Councillor Neeson replaces Councillor Thomas. The Joint Appointments Panel, I replace Councillor Riley, as I do indeed on the Joint Leaders Members Group, and on Joint Scrutiny, Councillor Riley replaces Councillor Holland. And then the remaining places are just to fill vacant substitute places for the Liberal Democrat Group. So on Audit, Councillor Catchpole, Awards, Councillors Catchpole, Neeson and Holland. Economic Success, Councillor Britcher. The Environment Panel, Councillor Beadle. Membership Development, Councillor Harrison. Wellbeing Panel, Councillor Thomas and Councillor Karimi Guvenlu. The Place Shaping Panel, Councillor Neeson. ONS, Councillor Beadle. CIEC, Councillors Harrison, Neeson and Riley. Planning, Councillor Catchpole. Joint Appointments Panel, Councillor Catchpole. And the Joint Leaders Group, Councillor Catchpole. And Joint Scrutiny, Councillor Holland. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roper, for reading those out. I have to say I have a slight issue with what's being proposed here. I was asked as chairman whether this could be taken as a late item, and I gave a view on it that it missed the deadline. And as chairman, I'm here to uphold the constitution. And I feel that, to be fair to other groups who may also have wanted to put in a amendment and met the constitution deadline, this doesn't feel an appropriate way of doing this. As I say, the constitution is quite clear when the appointments need to be in by, and they weren't in by that date. And you did consult with the monitoring officer, who also told you that it was too late. So I think all we can do at this point is go to the vote and then see how council feels about this request. Thank you. So
sorry, Chairman, can I have a right, just a right of apply on that? Just to say, just in terms of clarity on the constitution, there's been quite a lot of discussions on this, and councillors who have been around a long time will recall that in the past these items are always dealt with under delegated authority by the managing director and then noted by council, and that was an approach which I thought could be taken on this occasion, but following advice from the monitoring officer, we've decided to take it in this way, which, as I say, it's a housekeeping exercise, just to get the right people on the right committees, which I think fully accords with the Broadland business plan. And I think from the approach that the monitoring officer took in terms of the timing of the agenda is something which we weren't familiar with, that particular change, because it's always been done in a different way previously. We'll certainly learn from it next time, and I hope we can support these changes so that we can get our right committees in place just before we enter the summer break. Thank you.
If I can may first come back first, I've been chairman for over a year now, and this meant that the procedure I'm referring to hasn't changed in that time. So it's not a new change. So I don't know what you're referring to, but it must have been a while ago, that practice. I feel that, to be fair, that my role is to uphold the constitution. The constitution is quite clear, and when these appointments needed to be notified, and it's actually 10 days before the meeting, and they were notified on Monday, so it's only 3 clear working days before, which is very late. The reason I'm quite firm on this, Councillor Roper, and this goes to everybody, all members, and wherever these requests come for late business, is that in the current environment where we're working under the Zoom technology and we post papers out, I really feel that members should be given advance notice of business, and so we should follow the constitution. That's my personal view as chair of council. Otherwise, papers are received very late. Members there's a danger members don't get a chance to consider them before they come before council. And in that way, it feels less than democratic that people haven't had an opportunity to consider them before they come before the council. And equally, to be fair to the other groups, it could be that the Labour group may have wanted to make some changes. Had they known they could get them through late, then they may wanted to do that. And I'm just using that as a scenario. So I am struggling with this one for the reasons I've just outlined. There was a flurry of requests coming, to be fair, for late business, and I did discuss those with the monitoring officer and with the managing director at the beginning of the week on Monday when they were brought to my attention. And at that point, for the reasons I've just said, I feel that we need to adhere to the constitution unless there is a firm and urgent business case for that business to be brought forward. If there isn't, then I think they should go to the next council meeting. And of those 4 requests, I was given a clear business need for the temporary pavement licence matter to come forward, because if it was left until the September meeting, it would negatively impact on local businesses that we're trying to support. So I did accept that as a late item, an urgent item. I haven't received anything regarding this as an urgent item. So the first that I've seen as chairman of those changes is when they've just come back up on the screen. And personally, I think that is too late. And if we're going to run these meetings properly and thoroughly, I think it's too late to bring that tonight. As I've previously said earlier in the week, it's unless you can demonstrate an urgent business need for those appointments tonight, I feel they should go to the September meeting. They're my views on that. I can see the monitoring officer wants to come in and speak and maybe tell me off. Over to you, monitoring officer.
No, I wouldn't dream of it, Chairman. I think you've made your position clear, as I did at the start, in terms of whether this could be received as an urgent item. As I've set out in the Constitution, Councillor Roper has proposed this as an amendment. He has a seconder. I would suggest that we now go to the vote on whether we approve that as an amendment, Chairman.
Thank you for your advice, Monitoring Officer. So I will invite the committee officer to go to the roll call to go to the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Adams.
Against.
Councillor Beadle. Councillor Beadle, you need to unmute. I can't hear you.
Just to say that I have actually posted, I'd like to ask a question on this, so I am against. Sorry, for my leader's proposal, as it's quite clear he's our leader now, and there is some positions he should be on as a matter of urgency.
Thank you, Mr. Beadle. Councillor Brennan.
Against.
Councillor Britcher.
For.
Councillor Bullman.
Abstain.
Councillor Catchpole.
For.
Councillor Clancy.
Abstain.
Sorry, I misheard.
Abstain, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cook.
For.
Councillor Copplestone.
Against.
Councillor Crotch.
Against.
Councillor Emsell.
Against.
Councillor Fisher.
Against.
Councillor Grattan.
Against.
Councillor Gurney.
Against.
Councillor Hartley.
For.
Councillor Harrison.
For.
Councillor Hempsell.
Against.
Councillor Holland.
For.
Councillor Karimi Gouvenlou.
For.
Councillor Kelly.
Against.
Councillor King.
Councillor King, are you able to unmute?
Yep, I think Councillor King is against, Chairman. Councillor Lawn.
Against.
Councillor Lawrence.
For.
Councillor Judy Leggett.
Against.
Councillor Ken Leggett.
Against.
Councillor Mackie.
Against.
Councillor Mancini Boyle.
Against.
Councillor Neeson.
For what it's worth, I'm for.
Councillor Nurden.
Against.
Councillor Peck.
Against.
Councillor Prutton.
Against.
Councillor Riley.
For.
Councillor Roper.
For.
Councillor Ryman Tubb.
Against.
Councillor Shaw.
Against.
Councillor J Thomas.
Against.
Councillor K Vincent.
Against.
Councillor S Vincent.
Against.
Councillor Ward.
Against.
And Councillor Wymark.
Against.
Thank you, Chairman. If you would just give me a moment just to total up the votes.
Thank you, Dawn.
Chairman, whilst Dawn's adding up, I have been tallying. I'll confirm what I've got and hopefully Dawn will concur. We had 12 for, 26 against and 2 abstained. So the amendment is lost, but I will just ask Dawn to confirm that once she's tallied up.
Chairman, I make that 2 abstentions, 11 members voting for and 26 against. Does that tie in with your figures, Emma?
I had 12 against, and we have 12 Liberal Democrats in the room, and they did all vote against. So 12 against 20. Sorry,
No,
12
I think they
for.
voted. I think they voted for.
Apologies,
Yeah.
Chairman.
12. Let me just
Yep.
check. 1,
Yep.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Sorry, you're correct. 12, Chairman. 12 for, 26 against, and 2 abstentions.
Thank you. That sounds like that's lost.
Yes, that's Chairman.
Yeah. Okay. Can I just use this as a point, just to remind, and this goes to everybody, it goes to officers and all members, that please can we just follow what's in the Constitution so we don't have to have this sort of debate in Council again, because I want it to be a constructive meeting and I want us to be able to move forward in the right way. But equally, I'm here to uphold the Constitution to make sure that we operate these meetings constructively, fairly, and we're all working to the same rules. So that's the reason why I've been firm on this. I think otherwise it creates a dangerous precedent that we have late business come into each meeting, and officers, as they have been today, been running around trying to sort things out. If we work towards the deadlines that are agreed, we wouldn't have these last minute panics, and I think that's unhelpful and not best use of officers' time. So that's why I'm being firm on this particular item. No other reason than that. Thank you. So that vote has been lost. So we go back to the substantive, the original recommendation, which the leader read out a while ago, and I think that was on the page 134. And from memory, but please do correct me if I'm wrong. The proposal was by the leader. It was seconded by Councillor Mancini-Boyle, who reserved the right to speak. So, Councillor, if I can get my words out, Councillor Mancini-Boyle, did you want to speak at this point?
Sorry, Chair, I have indicated
didn't second
speak.
that, I'm afraid, Chairman.
Sorry, I've got a couple of people speaking at once then. If I can just finish what I was saying with Councillor Mancini-Boyle, and I'll come back to you, Councillor Roper. Councillor Mancini-Boyle, I didn't hear what you said there, sorry.
It wasn't me who seconded that, Madam Chair.
Ah, okay.
It was somebody else.
Did we have a seconder for that? I can't quite remember. It seems a long time ago now.
Chairman, it was Mrs. Hempsel, I believe.
Lana Hempsel. Councillor Hempsel. Yes, thank you. Right, before we go back to Lana Hempsel, Councillor Roper, you just wanted to come in there. Councillor Roper.
Well, I'm going to say that I will be supporting the proposals in the report, despite the amendment being voted down. If I would ask any member to look at any council agenda before May last year, you will see that the final item on every agenda was to note changes to committees proposed by group leaders, and that was always an item brought by the monitoring officer. This is why, this is because they were always previously done under Article 3 of the Constitution, which gave the managing director the ability to make those changes in between meetings, and they were then noted at the meeting as the final item. If you look on your iPads, you will see that was the process up until May last year, and that we were adhering to. And as I say, looking to do a bit of housekeeping. And we didn't look to raise it as a late item because we didn't see it as an emergency item. We saw it as an amendment to a very similar item that was already on the agenda, and it was accepted as an amendment. And that was the advice that we had from the monitoring officer. What I would say is that probably around half the reports we receive as a council have some sort of amendment to the proposal, often by the cabinet member, often late in the day, and we accept them without question. Figures are updated, commas are moved, even new proposals are put. If you remember that on the members' allowances, I think we had 20 odd amendments on the night, all of which went through and all of which were made without notice. And as I say, I will be supporting this item because I'm not prone to party political pettiness, which I think we've had in extreme on the vote on the previous item. And I think anyone looking in would say, do things only get passed as late items if they're moved by Conservatives? And do they only get moved do they only bend the rules on things which relate to councillors' pay? And I think it reflects badly on the
Councillor
authority.
Roper, I'm going to stop you at that point. I'm going to stop you at that point. I've made absolutely clear that I'm being apolitical and this rule applies to everybody. It is not a party political point that I'm making at all, and I take exception at your comments there. I really do take exception at what you're saying there. I'd say that you at that particular point are raising it as a political issue, not myself. And I see that you refer to a something in the I can't remember which it was. It was in the Constitution. You referred to a paragraph in there. I would also refer you to a couple of paragraphs in the Constitution. One particular one is paragraph 4.21F. A function of the full council. Only the council will exercise the following function, and one of those is appointments to committees. So I'm not entirely sure which reference you are referring to, but there are at least 2 or 3 references within the Constitution which says it is only the function of full council to agree those appointments, and that's what I'm upholding this evening. If you'd like to have a further debate outside of this council meeting, I'd be very happy to do so, but I am doing as the chairman should, and that's upholding the Constitution, as I've tried a number of times to explain to you this evening. And I can assure you and every member here present this evening, this is an impartial, apolitical stance that I'm taking tonight. I am upholding the Constitution and the rules therein. I'm not taking sides with any political party, if I can get my words out right. So I take offence at the comments and inference that you're making there, Councillor Roper. You've made your point. No, you've made your point, Councillor Roper, and I'm moving on now. Thank you very much. Thank you for supporting the motion as is set out. We've heard that we have a proposer, which was Councillor Sean Vincent. We have a seconder, which was Councillor Lana Hempsel. I got the wrong seconder, but I've now been informed correctly. Councillor Lana, if I could get my words out. Councillor Lana Hempsel, would you like to speak at this point before we go to the vote?
Well, as I'm prompted, I think I will. I think the council has taken the right decision. The Constitution is what it is, and we should stick with it. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'll invite the committee officer now to take the roll call to vote on what was a substantive motion, and the substantive motion is set out on page 134 of the agenda before you.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Adams.
For.
Councillor Beadle.
Reluctantly for.
Councillor Brennan.
For.
Councillor Britcher.
For.
Councillor Bullman.
For.
Councillor Catchpole.
For.
Councillor Clancy.
For.
Councillor Cook.
For.
Sorry, was that?
For.
Thank you, sorry. Councillor Copplestone.
For.
Councillor Crotch.
For.
Councillor Emsell.
For.
Councillor Fisher.
For.
Councillor Grattan.
For.
Councillor Gurney.
For.
Councillor Hartley.
For.
Councillor Harrison.
For.
Councillor Hempsel.
For.
Councillor Holland.
For.
Councillor Karimi Guvenlou.
For.
Councillor Kelly.
For.
Councillor King.
For.
Councillor Lawn.
For.
Councillor Lawrence.
For.
Councillor Judy Leggett.
For.
Councillor Ken Leggett.
For.
Councillor Mackie.
For.
Councillor Mancini Boyle.
For.
Councillor Neeson.
For.
Councillor Nurden.
For.
Councillor Peck.
For.
Councillor Prutton.
For.
Councillor Riley.
And may I ask, Chair, in a constitutional way, after this, could we possibly take a comfort break, please, Chair? It's coming up to 2 hours. Thank you.
Councillor Roper.
For.
Councillor Ryman Tubb.
For.
Councillor Shaw.
For.
Councillor J Thomas.
For.
Councillor Kay Vincent.
For.
Councillor Sean Vincent.
For.
Councillor Ward.
For.
Councillor Wymark.
For.
That's unanimous, Chairman. That is carried.
Thank you very much, Dawn, for confirming that. Thank you. And as I say, I want to draw a line under this. I want us to move forward in a constructive way in our council meetings, and let's hope we can do that. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Riley, for your suggestion. I wholeheartedly welcome that myself. So I will now adjourn the meeting for 5 minutes for a comfort break. Could someone just tell me the time, as I can't see it on my screen at the moment? Councillor Dawn Matthews, could you tell me what time we should come back if it's 5 minutes?
According to my clock, it's 20:55. So what time would you like to reconvene?
We'll come back at 9 o'clock, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you remember to turn your videos off while you're away, thank you, and you mute your microphones. Thank you.
They've only got the pink papers to do now.
Yeah.
Oh well, I'll.
Yeah.
Bye, Linda.
There you go. Okay, so let me see you.
Leah, can you help me with who's not on mute, please?
All right.
It's Ken Kelly.
So I'm just trying to find him on the screen.
So you need to mute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dawn, could you let me know when we're back at 9 o'clock, please, so I can start the meeting? I can't see it on my screen, sorry.
Yep, I can confirm it is gone 9 o'clock,
Oh, it's
Chairman.
gone 9, okay.
Would you like me to do another roll call?
Yes, if you would, please. Sorry, councillors.
Okay. Councillor Adams.
Here.
Councillor Beadle. I can see him, but I can't hear him. Councillor Beadle, can you just confirm your attendance?
Yes, present.
Thank you very much. Councillor Brennan.
Yeah, present.
Councillor Britcher.
Present.
Councillor Bullman.
Present.
Councillor Catchpole.
Present.
Councillor Clancy.
Here.
Councillor Cook.
Present.
Councillor Copplestone.
Here.
Councillor Crotch.
Present.
Councillor Emsell.
Here.
Councillor Fisher.
Here.
Councillor Grattan.
Yeah.
Councillor Gurney.
Councillor Gurney, can you unmute, please?
Gay, present.
Thank you. Councillor Hartley.
Here.
Councillor Harrison.
Yeah.
Councillor Hempsell.
Here.
Councillor Holland.
Yeah.
Councillor Karimi Guvenlu.
Present.
Councillor Kelly.
Present.
Councillor King.
Here.
Councillor Lawn.
Here.
Councillor Lawrence.
Yeah.
Councillor J Leggett.
Present.
Councillor K Leggett.
Present.
Councillor Mackey.
Here.
Councillor Mancini Boyle.
Present.
Councillor Neeson.
Here.
Councillor Nurden.
Here.
Councillor Peck.
Here.
Councillor Pretton.
Here.
Councillor Riley.
Sorry, Chair, late in unmuting there. Sorry.
Thank you. Councillor Roper.
Here.
Councillor Ryman Tubb.
Here.
Councillor Shaw.
I'm still here.
Councillor J Thomas.
Here.
Councillor K Vincent.
Here.
Councillor S Vincent. Here. Councillor Ward.
Here.
Councillor Waymark.
Here.
Thank you, Chairman. Everyone's present.
Thank you very much. So that now takes us on to item 13 of our agenda. That's the outside organisations feedback from representatives. I will take those papers as read by members. Unless there's any pressing items that the report authors would like to highlight, I move that we note those reports. I will just wait a moment in case there are any particular items that need to be brought to our attention. Nope. So on that basis, thank you very much, councillors, for submitting your reports. They are welcomed and we do enjoy receiving those. So thank you very much for doing that. We note those this evening. Now that takes us on to, where are we on the agenda? Item 14, questions from members. I'm advised that none were notified within the time period, so there are no questions, which takes us on to item 15, motions. I invite Councillor Riley to present his motion to Council. Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Chair. I will amplify the...
Sorry, I think I've been... The monitoring officer is indicating to me that she wants to speak first. Sorry, I think it's to set the scene.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Many thanks, Chairman, and apologies, Councillor Riley. I will keep it brief. I do think, however, due to the nature of the motion, there's a few points that it's very important to point out to the Council before we receive the motion and enter into a debate. So to be clear, the motion is about the decision-making process for the Waste Services Review. The motion is not about the Waste Services Review itself, and members are reminded that the content of this is confidential. Therefore, please be mindful of this during your debate. The Council operates in an executive way, and therefore key decisions are made by Cabinet. The Waste Services Review meets the criteria of a key decision.
Delegations are not managed in a waterfall fashion, i.e. from council downwards. Council cannot draw its power from Cabinet. However, Cabinet can refer its power to Council if it is so minded to do so. It is this element which is to be debated and the conclusion reached this evening. Cabinet will then note the conclusion of Council and will be mindful of that conclusion when they make the decision on the Waste Services Review in August. Many thanks, Chairman.
Thank you, Monitoring Officer. That was helpful. Thank you. And sorry, Councillor Riley, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Emma. That was useful actually, and setting the parameters for that debate. In moving the motion, Chair, I'll just read it out, amplify the motion as I should. Following which, I'd also just like to register the privilege of, excuse me, of right of reply at the end of the debate. The Council recognises the work of the Joint Working Party in examining proposals for the waste contract future provision. Future waste provision is a complex issue involving a quality of service level to BDC residents, environmental concerns and appropriate policy together with future proofing. Investment over the term of any contract or provision will involve the spending and commitment of multi-millions in funding by the Council on behalf of taxpayers and is of a significant magnitude. A final decision will also need to take account of any risk involved in a business case basis. Therefore, in line with Part 3 of the Constitution, responsibility for functions 16.4(3), the Cabinet may refer the Council to exercise any of its delegated powers to the Council. I therefore move that Cabinet exercise its authority under the above and ask Cabinet to refer to the Council the final decision on the waste service provision. I so move, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Riley, and your right of reply has been registered. Thank you. Do you have a seconder for your motion? Yes.
Catchpole.
Yeah, Councillor Catchpole. Councillor Catchpole, would you like to speak now or reserve the right?
I'd just like to say I completely second this motion. I really believe this is a large decision which needs to be taken by full Council.
Rookie error, sorry. We've received the proposer and the second of the motion. I'll open it up to question and debate. Would anyone like to speak at this point? Councillor Judy Leggett, I can see wants to speak first, and then I can see Councillor Roper would like to speak next. Councillor Judy Leggett.
Thank you, Chairman. I was surprised to see this motion concerning this item of work. I will refer you to the recent Environment Excellence panel, as all our panels are, open to cross-party and open to all members. Before that panel, on this particular item, all members of the Council received documentation. And I stress all members received relevant papers. And I also understand that your group received a briefing from officers. The panel meeting was open to all members to attend, and I was pleased to see that non-panel members took opportunity to do this. Thus, you were able to see the presentation, to hear the debate of the panel and to ask questions, which you did. There was no time limit set to questions. You were all able to ask and contribute on any point. The result of that was the recommendation from this cross-party panel was unanimous. So I really was quite surprised to read the motion, and I believe what you are asking for is unnecessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Judy Leggett. I had Councillor Roper wanting to speak next. Councillor Roper.
Thank you, Chairman. I would say that in the contents of this motion, there is absolutely no criticism of the process or any comment on the process or the information that's been provided to councillors so far. It's about we go about the actual decision. And I think there's 2 points which I would look to make on that. And the first one is that there are very few services that Broadland District Council provide that affect every single household in our district on at least a weekly basis, and every single business premises. And waste services is one, and possibly the only one. So it is a decision of major magnitude. And on that basis, it makes sense, perhaps, for all members to at least register a vote on that issue because of its magnitude. The second point I'd make is just about ownership of the decision. And I think it's right that the decision is done by the whole council and the whole council owns it, rather than it's just done by the cabinet. And if I could make an analogy to bitter past in another place, if we look at, for example, at the incinerator debate at the county council a few years ago, one of the weaknesses and points of debate and contention along that all the way was that the cabinet had made the decision and that it had never been referred to full council. And it always brought doubts about whether it would have got a full majority in council. And when the buck stopped, it stuck with the cabinet. And I do believe that for such a wide-ranging issue such as this, there will be real benefits in each council member having a vote and the whole council owning the decision when it's made in whatever direction it's made. And I think that's the spirit behind this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Roper, for your comments there. Thank you. Councillor Judy Leggett, did you want to respond on those?
No.
No. Okay, thank you. I can see that Councillor David Britcher would like to speak next. Councillor Britcher.
Yeah, it's a case of, for me, that waste services for Broadland is actually one aspect that actually affects every household, virtually. I can't think of anybody else who doesn't actually, unless you don't have any waste or you get rid of it somewhere else. So, and everybody who's a member of Broadland District Council has been elected, and so they've been democratically elected to represent their ward. And I believe that of something where every household is affected, then every member should have a vote on the situation of how we move forward with the waste proposals. That's democracy is not being fully done as far as I'm concerned. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Britcher. Would Councillor Mackie, would you like to speak at this point? I can see you've indicated through the chat function.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. It's much appreciated. And I think we've heard some of these issues about democratic deficit all before, and they're very long in the tooth in terms of where they actually fall down. And I think this falls down around this motion because the Constitution is quite clear where the delegated authority sits, or where the authority sits, and that is with the Cabinet. And I think, as the monitoring officer and Councillor Leggett has already outlined, there is significant reasons why this motion doesn't really pertain to the current situation. Just picking up Councillor Roper's point about the County Council and previous things, I must admit, again, there we followed the processes, which was, this was a Cabinet decision, and that is the Constitution at the time. Had it gone to full council, Councillor Roper, I can assure you as Deputy Leader at the time, it would have gone through because we had 63 members, 2 of which were former Liberal Democrats who crossed the floor to join us. So I think we'd have been okay at that time. And on this particular motion, I think this is trying to make a bit of a mountain out of a molehill, and I hope we all vote it down, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Mackie. Would anyone else like? I've got the leader has indicated he'd like to speak. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? No, I'll invite the leader to speak at this point.
Thank you, Chairman. As has been highlighted, this is about process and authority, and we've heard from the monitoring officer where and how the appropriate decision for this should be made. That's also being reinforced by both Councillor Mackie and Councillor Leggett. It's quite clear from statute and from our constitution in the way that it outlines the role and the authority of Cabinet in its decision-making ability. And that's why I'm quite surprised that Council is being asked to ask Cabinet to refer to Council. It all feels a bit bizarre and a bit surreal. Council, as we know, cannot draw this power to itself. Only Cabinet can make this choice. This isn't a Cabinet meeting. This is a Council meeting. So for me, this request feels a bit pointless. If I look at it pragmatically, I also feel that it's a little late to make such a request. As we all know, the recommendation that's coming to Cabinet, which was unanimously supported by the Environment Excellent Panel, by all members attending, as has been outlined by the portfolio holder, Councillor Judy Leggett, who chairs the Environment Excellence Panel. It was a cross-member group, and everybody who wanted to, not just members of the group or the panel, but also any members in attendance were able to speak and make their representation. Councillor Britcher has said that there was a democratic lacking of representation, and I can assure him there was not. He was at that meeting. He was able to speak, as were other members of his own group also spoke. I know the chair of that meeting, Councillor Leggett, enabled all those there who wanted to participate to express their views. I believe that Councillor Riley, that you also took the opportunity at the Environment Excellence Panel to speak and express your view. So it would seem that all members from all political groups who wanted to express their points were able to, in the right way, in the right process, in the right place, which was the Environment Excellence Panel. And the panel, based on those views, thoughts, and statements that were made by the members, made a recommendation that will come to the next Cabinet meeting. I'm therefore struggling to see, as it seems all groups are in agreement, as the recommendation coming out of the Environment Excellence Panel was unanimous, why you would seek to ask Council, to ask Cabinet to refer powers back to Council. It just seems an initiative process. I can, although Councillor Riley, perhaps give some reassurance. Cabinet is very considerate of the decisions that it takes. It will only take just and appropriate decisions based on the authority that it has. If there is a significant change from our current delivery, Cabinet would be carefully considering all of the risks which you asked it to do. So again, I find it difficult to understand why you would ask Council to ask Cabinet. Again, putting all of that to one side, I'm not sure that you've actually considered the impact that such a request would make on the implementation of the decision that Cabinet would make. All it will do is build in delay while we wait for the next Council meeting. And in building that delay in, it adds risk to any process that then is used in going forward. As I believe that you are in agreement with the recommendation of the Environment Excellence Panel, I fail to see why you would want to do that. Therefore, I just can't support this motion. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Leader. I have a number of people wishing to speak, and in this order it will be Councillor Beadle, Councillor Catchpole, and then Councillor Fisher. Councillor Beadle.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for calling me. This is the fourth time of requesting to be called and the first time to be called. So thank you for calling me. The Liberal Democrat group do not want to abdicate responsibility for a whole service like this for the whole of the district, for every household and many and several other users. It is a service which actually everybody appreciates. We've got a good service, and we don't want to see it diluted. And that we think that this should be a responsibility of all councillors, not just by the cabinet. We have an experience as a county council resident of the county council taking matters into its own hands on a major issue some years ago, which cost the county council millions of pounds for no service. And so I do think it should go to the full council. And as the leader says, it went to the panel, but it is only a panel. It's not a decision-making body, and therefore it is right that it should come to full council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Beadle. Councillor Catchpole, you were next to speak.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd like to ask, in what way is it not in our residents' interest for all council members to make the final decision?
Councillor Catchpole, thank you very much for your question. Is it the leader or Councillor Judy Leggett wishing to answer that one? I think it's the leader has indicated he'd like to answer that one. I'll invite the leader to speak.
Again, I referred to the response that I gave earlier, that this is a decision that will be made in the right way, in the right place, using the right process, outlining the right reasons for doing things in the right way. To change and try and force Cabinet to do something that it may or may not be mindful to do is not the right thing to do. We have processes, and we're hearing this again tonight, around processes that are not being used and not being adhered to. And we should follow what is in our constitution. We all signed up to our constitution. We all agreed to it. We all say that's the way in which we operate. Oh, but today we want to change it. The appropriate decisions are made in the right places, in the way that they should be made. We cannot in any way claim that those decisions then do not represent all of our residents. As I've already explained, there is a process for representation to be made, and it has been made at the Environmental Excellence Panel. I'm sure it will also be made at the ONS as they review the recommendation that comes or will be coming to Cabinet. I'm sure there'll be representation at Cabinet, and all of those things we would expect, because that's what we do as councillors. We represent our residents, and we do it to the best of our ability to make the best choices we can make with the information we have at that point in time. And to do it in a different way and not realizing the consequences and the risks that that then puts into any process is just ludicrous. And we should just sit back and realize that we have taken time to put together the constitution that we have, that has developed over the years. And the reason that it's how it is because we as councillors and the officers that support us have got it to the best that it can be at this point in time. And in implementing that, we will be making the choices in the right way, in the right committees, and will feed through in the appropriate manner. So I don't see why we're having this debate, but I'm quite happy to have it. But I feel this council is very strong, is very well run, is very well supported by its officers team, and I see no reason why we would suddenly feel that a cabinet is unable to make a decision, even if it then does subsequently decide that it wants to refer that decision, because that's part of its process and part of it being mindful for what it does. But that cabinet is more than capable of doing and making a decision in the correct and appropriate way.
Thank you, Leader. I've got a couple of people wishing to speak. I've got Councillor Fisher and Councillor Peck. Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman. Really, just a comment that the time, and it has been said by other people, the time for studying the Constitution is when we're setting the Constitution, and that is when the small print should be read, and that's when the challenges should come. But to get part of the debate and the fact that it was considered, this whole issue was considered by EEP, I was surprised the fact that papers went out to every member, that there was not more people joining in at EEP to actually listen to the debate, maybe take part in the debate. But there was, to my mind, a distinct lack of interest at EEP. So why we should suddenly find interest now, and when we're now querying the Constitution, we're not querying the decision, we're not querying anything, we're not saying we want to speak because the availability and the opportunity to speak was at EEP. So I really don't understand why this is coming to council now, and I would encourage people that if they do find issues with the Constitution, then they should query that at the time, not 6 months down the line. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fisher. I've got Councillor Peck wishing to speak. Councillor Peck.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, following on from Councillor Fisher's comments, you either have a cabinet system or you don't. You can't just pick and choose. And every time there's a specific issue comes up, you think, well, we'll do that by a different route. That's crazy. You will remember at County Council when we had the Rainbow Alliance and the Lib Dems were involved in the leadership then. They changed to a system. They went away from a cabinet system. And what a pig's ear that was. I mean, left the council in a total state with finances and everything. No decisions get made. Everybody talks and talks and talks. We have a very good process here, which is a cabinet system, which is open to scrutiny. As we know the way the system works. So I don't think we should change it just because of one decision. It's crazy. And as Councillor Fisher says, if you have an issue with the Constitution, the time to discuss that is at the time at the beginning of a session where I presume we confirm the Constitution at certain times, and that is the time to have that debate, not just changing it for a specific item. You either have a system or you don't. Sorry, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peck. I think we've given this a good debate. There's been lots of members speak on this. Is there any members who haven't yet spoken would like to speak? I can't see anyone indicating that they would like to speak if they haven't already. Okay, so we have a proposer. We have a seconder in Councillor Riley. Councillor Catchpole, did you reserve the right to reply? Would you like to do that at this point?
Yes, I think I would. Recently at ONS, we have had a report demonstrating how very few, I think it might have been one, of the recommendations from an ONS have actually been accepted by Cabinet. And therefore, I would like to bring that to everybody's attention. What makes us believe that the recommendation of the environmental panel will be accepted by Cabinet? And in that situation, surely it would be better if every council member had a vote.
Thank you, Councillor Catchpole. Councillor Riley, you registered your right to sum up. Would you like to speak at this point?
Thank you very much, Chair. I will. And in terms of reply, obviously, it's got license for me to pick up on some of the points that have been made. And I'll compass those together really around Judy's point around the panel, a couple of other members that made points around the panel, and also in relation to the points that are being made around the Constitution. In terms of the panel, it's correct to say there was a panel meeting. It's correct to say that members could attend that and make some points. However, it's not correct to say that because you simply made points that you were in a position of making a decision, because the panel on this cannot make the decision for the final decision on this to be made. All it could do was put forward a recommendation through to Cabinet. And excuse me. And if you look at the comments that were being made around, you know, and there was members of our group at that panel, we have 2 members of that panel. We do have over 40 councillors within the council. We have 7 Cabinet members who will ultimately, under the legal imperative here, which this comes under, which Emma referred to, is actually an executive decision. However, not everything is made by the executive, the Cabinet. As you know, and you've seen tonight, you've seen on other agendas, there are things that have to come for council's determination, and Cabinet only recommend. So there is no, you know, there is no position where the Cabinet just makes a ruling on everything. It just doesn't exist. Now, in this situation, the Constitution is actually very clear, and the Constitution states very clearly in Part 3 of the Constitution, responsibility for functions, 16.3, the Cabinet may refer to the Council the exercise of any power delegated to it. And what the point being made here is that this is of such a magnitude involving multi of millions of pounds, the final decision with Cabinet recommendation obviously going to it in a normal way on this occasion, that really that merits all councillors being involved, being brought into that and making a final decision. And I don't agree with Ian Mackey's point that this is making a mountain out of a molehill. I do not believe that millions of pounds risk, and also something that directly affects residents in this way and council taxpayers, is actually anything to be considered as a molehill. Quite the reverse, in actual fact. And therefore, I think the points that are being made around the panel are not relevant. And I think the points that are being made around the Constitution are entirely wrong. The Constitution is very clear on this. And also, the Cabinet could, and I think it's a wise decision for the Cabinet to make, on this decision, should refer the final decision to the full council. And I do believe there is real merit in that, and merit for taxpayers, and in terms of risk. And therefore, I would finally move this motion, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Riley, for summing up. You've moved the report. As we said, we've had a seconder. At this point, I'll invite the committee officer to call the roll call so that we can vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Adams.
Against.
Councillor Beadle.
Oh.
Councillor Brennan.
Against.
Councillor Britcher.
For.
Councillor Bullman.
Against.
Councillor Catchpole.
For.
Councillor Clancy.
Against.
Councillor Cook.
For.
Councillor Copplestone.
Against.
Councillor Crotch.
Against.
Councillor Emsell.
Against.
Councillor Fisher.
Against.
Councillor Grattan.
Against.
Councillor Gurney.
Against.
Councillor Hartley.
For.
Councillor Harrison.
For.
Councillor Hempsell.
Against.
Councillor Holland.
For.
Councillor Karimi Guvenlou.
For.
Councillor Kelly.
Against.
Councillor King.
Against.
Councillor Lawn.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Lawrence.
For.
Councillor Judy Leggett.
Against.
Councillor Ken Leggett.
Against.
Councillor Mackey.
Against.
Councillor Mancini Boyle.
Against.
Councillor Neeson.
For.
Councillor Nurden,
Against.
Councillor Peck,
Against.
Councillor Prutton,
Against.
Councillor Riley,
For.
Councillor Roper,
For.
Councillor Ryman Tubb,
Against.
Councillor Shaw,
Against.
Councillor Thomas.
J. Thomas against.
Thank you. Councillor Vincent. Sorry, Karen Vincent.
Against.
Councillor Sean Vincent.
Against.
Councillor J. Ward.
Against.
And Councillor Wymark.
Against.
Thank you. I'll just count the votes up, Chairman.
Thank you, Dawn.
To assist, Chairman, I believe the motion for was 12 votes, against was 28. The motion is therefore lost.
Mm-hmm.
Chairman, I agree with that. 28-12, so the motion is lost.
Thank you, Dawn. We've heard that the motion is lost. So we now have a couple of items left on our agenda. With Council's agreement, I move that we take the urgent item before we exclude the press and public. Is Council happy with that? If you are, can you just raise your hands, please? Okay, I think Monitoring Officer, can you see if that's
that's all
accepted?
in agreement. That's all
Okay,
agreement, Chairman.
Thank you. So I'm taking item 8, and that's the temporary pavement licensing that I referred to earlier in the meeting. I will invite Councillor Judy Leggett to present this item. Councillor Judy Leggett. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. You've all received, I think, a paper copy of this item of business. The reason for the urgency is that so businesses can apply for one of these temporary pavement license as soon as possible. And in doing that, can make the most of the summer. If we had delayed it, it wouldn't have been until September, and businesses would have lost a lot of business. This is temporary. This is a temporary law, and it's only effective up to September 2021. I trust you've all read the papers, and therefore I will propose that the Council accepts the recommendation, which can be found on page 156 and it can be paid on 154 and 160. There are 3 recommendations. The recommendation for the fee at £75, and that I'm told will cover the resources of the Council to issue these. The delegation is to 5 officers, and that is to ensure that during this holiday time that there'll always be somebody around who can deal with the applications as expediently as possible. And I really think that's all I need to say on the topic. Therefore, I propose that the Council accepts the recommendations on page 160. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leggett. I can see in the chat that Councillor Joe Copleston would like to second the recommendation. Councillor Copleston, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
Could I reserve the right, please, Chair?
Of course, thank you. Can I just ask Councillor Beadle, very early in the meeting that you wanted to speak, was it on this item? I'm just looking for it back in the chat. Councillor Beadle, I don't know if you can hear me or whether the monitoring officer can help me find it in the chat. That was right at the very beginning of the meeting.
Yes, correct, Chair. and this is one of the items I would like to speak on. Can I say on a procedural point, 8.1.1, it says the Cabinet agrees to, the recommendation that Cabinet agrees to. So this has got to go back to Cabinet, yes?
Chairman, would you like me to come in on this?
Yes,
point?
if you wouldn't mind, please.
Of course I can. So the report you have in front of you is what went to Cabinet. I've lost track of the days, last week I think it was, and what happened in between Cabinet making the decision and the decision being before you at Council this evening is that the bill changed as it went through Parliament. So the decision that was going through at the time was that this was an executive function, and that this was something that Cabinet could make the decision on. As it worked its way through the various avenues, it was determined that due to the quasi-judicial aspects of licensing, this was in fact a council decision that was needed, hence the reason for what you have in front of you. So to be clear for members this evening, this is a council decision and will not need to be referred back to Cabinet.
So if I can come back on this, Chair, there needs to be an amendment to the wording under recommendations.
Could I interrupt, Chair, please?
Of course.
I think if we look at page 154, that might be clearer. Sorry, thank you for pointing it out. The two pages are not identical. 154, it removes the mention of Cabinet.
So if I've got page 154 in front of me, the recommendations there are to set the temporary pavement licence application fee at £75. In item 2, it then talks about the delegated authority, and then 3 is delegating authority to the following officers the power to enforce licence conditions and to vary or revoke individual licences. So that's what we're voting on this evening. Is that correct, Councillor Leggett?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So for that clarification, so we're not looking at page 160, we're looking at page 154, which is a recommendation to Council tonight to set the temporary pavement licensing application fee at £75. Can I say, Chairman, in the times of these very difficult times, when restaurants and cafes are finding life very difficult, we should be encouraging people to eat and be entertained outside of it at all possible. And we shouldn't be putting things in their way, and including this £75 fee. And I think it's something, if we do want to have a licensing system, which I've got grave concerns about anyway, I think it's much more appropriate to have a code of conduct whereby the restaurants and cafes and the like should abide by. But if we are going to have a licensing fee, a licensing system, I don't think we should be charging a fee of £75, Chair. And so I propose the amendment that we do not charge a fee for this service. Thank you, Chair. Seeking a seconder.
Thank you, Councillor Beadle. Do you have a seconder for your amendment? I can see Councillor Riley, you've got, yeah. So Councillor Beadle has proposed an amendment to remove the charge of £75. Councillor Riley has seconded that.
Chair, is it possible to speak now?
Of course, yes.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this did come up at ONS, and as you know, at the Cabinet meeting, I was put forward a recommendation that in regards to £75. The reason being is that the recommendation at that point in time, and in terms of Stuart's proposal here, just defining that, if you like, it is that we waive a £75 fee for a period of 6 months, then review. The main issue being is that a number of these operators, some of them are very small operations, small CAFs, one-person businesses really struggling and living on a shoestring. And in this COVID situation, they are really up against it. So it would seem prudent in terms of supporting business in a proper way, and these individuals who are largely really self-employed, some of them, that we should waive that fee. It seems a little bit petty of us to maintain the fee. Broadland Council, with its reserves and everything in place, can easily afford to administer this. and they're very small sums coming back into us that can make a huge difference to some of these operations moving forward. And I believe that's what the sentiment is behind the Act moving forward on this. So yes, I do second this, Chair, and I believe the council should accept the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a proposer and a seconder on the amendment, so we need to debate that one first. I can see a number of people wish to speak. I'm not sure quite which they want to speak on, so I'm going to take them in turn. I've got Councillor Catchpole. You wanted to speak.
Sorry, Chair, I think that was on the previous item.
Okay, thank you, and sorry about that. Councillor Gurney, did you want to speak on this item? Councillor Gurney.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I've looked at the report quite a lot, and obviously my interests were licensing and regulatory as the chairman, and I'd like to ask a couple of questions, please. There's pavement.
Sorry, Councillor Gurney, can I just, sorry to interrupt, can I just make sure that your comment is regarding the amendment that's been proposed and seconded? That's what we need to debate presently.
Oh, right, sorry, no, I want to talk about the document, thank you.
Okay, we'll come back to you.
Please,
thank you.
Thank you, Monitoring Officer. Councillor Hempsall, did you want to speak on the amendment? No,
no, not on the amendment, on the substantive motion, please, Chairman. If that's okay, can I
come back to that? Yeah, thank you. Got Councillor Copleston, you've got your hand up. Did you want to speak at this point on the amendment? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with Councillor Leggett. I think it's important to charge a fee of £75 for the temporary pavement licensing. It is that there will be officer time taken up in this, and I just want to remind Council what I said at the beginning of the meeting, that there is a new grant scheme to help small and medium-sized businesses to access grants between £1,000 and £5,000. And this will also include legal and professional fees. So businesses that are struggling to pay this fee might be helped with grant aid. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coplestone. Are there any other members wishing to speak on the amendment before we go to the vote on it? Councillor Lawrence, I believe you want to speak on the amendment. Councillor Lawrence?
Sorry, thank you. Yeah, just to say, I suppose that was my point, really, that several of these businesses are applying for grants, and it seems to take with one hand and give with the other. And for the transaction, transactional cost and kind of just the hassle, it seems of processing the £75, it seems to be not value for money in terms of people's time and consideration, and for the gesture of being able to support small businesses, really small ones, micro businesses, that are really struggling and have just a sort of a few months to make significant kind of, or just get by. I think that in itself is a valuable decision to take in showing support and solidarity with action, rather than just saying, we are for small businesses. This is a way we can act, and I'm sure we are all interested in actually taking positive action, and I think this way is a real positive way in which we support micro businesses in the tourism sector, which are going to be struggling. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence, for your comments. I can see that Councillor Judy Leggett wishes to speak. Is it on the amendment, Councillor Leggett?
Yes, I would just like to add to the fact that the grants are available, but also the legislation fixes a maximum fee, and that maximum fee is £100. Therefore, we're not asking for the maximum. We're asking for £75, which I believe will cover the work that's needed. It's not just the work of collecting the £75. It's all the consultation that needs to be done in a very short time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leggett. I don't have anyone else wishing to speak on the amendment. It was proposed by Councillor Beadle, seconded by Councillor Riley. Councillor Riley, did you want to speak at this point before I ask Councillor Beadle to sum up and we go to the vote? No. Councillor Beadle, would you like to sum up, please?
Thank you, Chair. Just to say, it's self-evident that it's disruptive to small businesses to take their eye off the ball to actually fill in all this paperwork and then be charged £75 for the sake of it. And I don't think we should be charging, Chair, for this £75 licence. Shouldn't be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beadle. At this point, I'll invite the committee officer, Dawn, to take the roll call, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Adams.
Against.
Councillor Beadle.
For.
Councillor Brennan.
Against.
Councillor Britcher.
For.
Councillor Bullman.
Against.
Councillor Catchpole.
For.
Councillor Clancy.
Against.
Councillor Cook.
For.
Councillor Copplestone.
Against.
Councillor Crotch.
Against.
Councillor Emsell.
Against.
Councillor Fisher.
Against.
Councillor Grattan.
Against.
Councillor Gurney. Councillor Hartley.
For.
Councillor Harrison.
For.
Councillor Hempsell.
Against.
Councillor Holland.
For.
Councillor Karimi Guvenlou.
For.
Councillor Kelly.
Against.
Councillor King.
Against.
Councillor Lawn. Councillor Lawrence.
For.
Councillor J Leggett.
Against.
Councillor K Leggett.
Against.
Councillor Mackie. Councillor Mancini Boyle.
Against.
Councillor Neeson.
For.
Councillor Nurden.
Against.
Councillor Peck.
Sorry, moment.
Councillor Peck, can I get your vote again, please?
Sorry, against.
Thank you. Councillor Pratton.
Against.
Councillor Riley.
For.
Councillor Roper.
For.
Councillor Ryman Tubb.
Against.
Councillor Shaw.
Against.
Councillor J Thomas.
Against.
Councillor Vincent. Sorry, K Vincent, sorry.
Yeah.
Councillor S Vincent.
Against.
Councillor J Ward.
Against.
Councillor F.Y. Mark.
Against.
Right, Chairman, I think that's 28 members voting against, 12 members voting for. That amendment is lost.
Thank you, Dawn. We've heard that amendment's lost, so we go back to the original recommendation, which is set out on page 104 of your papers. That was proposed by Councillor Leggett. Trying to think who seconded it now. Can someone help?
Yeah,
Joe, that was Councillor Copplestone seconded it, wasn't it? Yeah, thank you. Councillor, so now we debate this recommendation. I know we started it before the amendment was proposed, but are there any new comments that people would like to make that they haven't already? I'm just looking in the chat to see who would like to speak.
Chairman, I'd like to speak, sorry.
Councillor Hempsell.
Yeah, is that okay? Right.
It is, thank you.
Okay, so I was away when this item was discussed at Cabinet, so apologies to the Council for the late arrival of my comments. As I said when I declared my interest, I'm the coordinator for the Norwich Guide Dog Forum. Everybody knows I'm visually impaired. I'm a guide dog user. So when it comes to street clutter and street furniture, I hope you all know as long-standing councillors that there's been a campaign going on for years, lobbying government and local authorities to make sure that street clutter is reduced to an absolute minimum, because it causes a hazard to visually impaired people, it causes obstruction to wheelchair users, etc., etc. So when this item came up, I looked at the timescales. These licenses have to be granted within 5 days, and the equalities impact assessment that we carried out did indicate that there is a potential for antisocial behaviour, which is mitigated by a consultation with the police, but the adverse impact on visually impaired people, which was also identified in the impact assessment, has not been necessarily mitigated for. So I've had a conversation with the director of place. So, through you, Chairman, could the portfolio holder for environmental excellence please gain a confirmation from the director of place that the issues raised in the impact assessment are addressed in some shape or form, because I'm very pro-business and I would hate to see them missing out on trade, because recovery of the economy is key to everyone. However, street clutter is an issue for less able-bodied people amongst us. And I think it's important that as a council we take an absolute stance on this and ensure that those vulnerable in our society aren't disadvantaged, even more so than they already are by COVID. So I'll close it there. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Hempswell. I'll invite Councillor Leggett. Judy Leggett, would you like to come back on that, please?
Yes, I'm happy to do that. I've looked at some of the guidance and it certainly stresses in there that needs of those who may be disadvantaged by this should be considered when applications are considered, and applications are considered on a one-by-one basis. So that is what should happen, and I'm happy to talk to the director about that.
Chairman, I mean, sorry to interject, but the Director of Place is actually here and he has given me some quite specific thoughts on how this will be mitigated, and I would really like those to be minuted because they're not explicit either in the report or the impact assessment. So could that please take place in council, because I think it's important that this is minuted. I really don't want this falling through the cracks.
I'm sure it will be minuted.
Can I just ask the monitoring officer, can I invite the Director of Place to speak on this? What's the...
Of course you can. You can invite the Director of Place to speak, as I think Councillor Hempswell is referred to some specifics, too many S's.
Okay. Oh, I can see the Director of Place here. Thank you very much. I'll invite you to speak. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, just to confirm that in terms of mitigating the points that Councillor Hempswell has raised, the guidance, the national guidance associated with this legislation and with regard to pavement licences requires an applicant to submit a design and access statement showing the provision that will be made for people with sensory and physical disabilities. If a licence is granted, then there's also a national condition that basically requires that licence not to make an obstruction. But if that then goes ahead, an obstruction is then caused for wheelchair users or older people or partially sighted pedestrians, then we can review that and we can revoke that licence. So all of those mitigations that are referred to by the Qualities Impacts Assessment are available to us to overcome those concerns. And I'm very happy for that to be minuted.
Thank you for that. Councillor Hempswell, you wanted to come back.
Yes, just briefly. I mean, would the council agree that a specific press release is issued to the public in relation to this, because there will be a lot of confusion out there when all of this extra street furniture starts appearing as to whom any complaints or issues should be reported to. So I'd be exceptionally grateful if we could make it very clear in a press release, how any issues should be dealt with and who any complaints should be referred to. Please, Chairman. Sorry to press the point, but this is honestly, talk about throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We're talking about 6-7 years worth of campaigning to get to where we are now, and literally overnight, all those efforts have been erased in favour of adding more street furniture. So that's why I'm quite keen that we address this in a sympathetic, positive way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hempsall. Councillor Judy Leggett, do you want to reply to this?
Well, I thought the matter's been resolved.
Yeah, okay.
Hasn't it, to Councillor Hempsall's satisfaction?
Councillor Hempsall.
Yeah, Chairman, I just asked for a press release, that's all, because I've also noted that our head of communications is here as well. So if we could put a positive story out there, telling people that, this is this is something new, that it's temporary till next year. And if there are any issues with the layout of external seating with any particular business that are causing disabled people problems, that any complaints should be referred to the council rather than absorbed somewhere else, because the council can act and review those licenses. That's all. So yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Hempsall. I think your point's been noted, so thank you for that. I'm mindful of the time. We have now passed 10 o'clock. I'm just going to see, are there any people, councillors wanting to raise new points on the recommendation? I can see Councillor Gurney is wishing to speak and has wanted to for a little while, so I'll invite Councillor Gurney to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. A couple of questions, please. What safeguards within the form and the criteria are going to be put in place, or I feel need to be put in place, to ensure that people who have small businesses and would like to use the facility of pavement opportunities actually are not applying for licenses on land that they shouldn't be, or land that they don't own or haven't got the landowner's permission? That's one thing that isn't in the disclaimer. And secondly, on page 164, there's an NB for the application, periodic inspections. As a council, has Broadland got the resources to go out and police this if necessary? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gurney. Councillor Judy Leggett, would you like to respond?
I'm sure that the council will have the resources to go out and deal with items or complaints when that happens, and I would add my plea to the communications that when the press release goes out, there's a clear phone number for people to be able to ring. And that was that one. And the item about the issue about whether or not people will be doing it on land that they don't own or on the highway. Can I ask the director to answer that question, please, because it's outside my level of knowledge at the moment.
Thank you. Sorry, Chair, is that okay? If I understand the question, it's saying, is that person allowed to apply for a license that is on the highway? The answer is absolutely. That is the purpose of it. And they'll need to obviously make that clear as part of the application.
I did actually say in the form, I felt there should be a disclaimer that says that they have the right to do it, and that the land that they apply for the license on, they can do it, and it doesn't belong to somebody else, i.e. a private owner that hasn't given their permission, because there's pavements and there's pavements and there's land and there's land. That was my point.
Thank you, Councillor Gurney. I think that point's been taken on board. Is that correct, Director of Place?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. I asked before that question, I took that question, whether there are any new points to be raised on this. Nobody has come forward on that basis. Councillor Riley, is this a new point that you're making?
Well, basically, Chair, I actually just want to speak in support of this because we've just had the amendment in terms of the licence fee. Notwithstanding that, it's terribly important that we do have a licence. This is actually the way forward in terms of trying to support business, but also to make sure that it gets regulated properly via having licences. To not have a licence at all is like the Wild West out there, and picking up on Lana Hansel's points as well. So licensing is very necessary in terms of regulation, mitigation, and it's also for benefit in terms of provision for supporting these businesses. So just like to say, on that basis, I'd still support the proposal, Chair.
Thank you. As I've said previously, I think we've had a really good debate on this. So thank you very much for councillors for your comments. At this point, I will invite Councillor Leggett to sum up before we go to the vote.
Right, I think everybody has expressed their opinion. I think pleased to hear that people are in favour of this, and thus I move the recommendations which are on page 154.
Thank you very much, Councillor Judy Leggett. So we're voting on the recommendations on page 154. I'll invite the committee officer to call the roll call. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Adams.
Agree.
Councillor Beadle.
Abstain.
Councillor Brennan.
Agree.
Councillor Britcher.
Abstain.
Councillor Bullman.
For.
Councillor Catchpole.
For.
Councillor Clancy.
For.
Councillor Cook.
For.
Councillor Copplestone.
For.
Councillor Crotch.
For.
Councillor Emsall.
For.
Councillor Fisher.
For.
Councillor Grattan.
For.
Councillor Gurney.
For.
Councillor Hartley.
For.
Councillor Harrison.
For.
Councillor Hempsall.
For.
Councillor Holland.
For.
Councillor Karimi Gouvanlou. Councillor Karimi Gouvanlou.
I'm voting for.
Thank you, Tom. Councillor Kelly.
For.
Councillor King.
For.
Councillor Lawn.
For.
Councillor Lawrence.
For.
Councillor Judy Leggett.
For.
Councillor Ken Leggett.
For.
Councillor Mackie.
For.
Councillor Mancini Boyle.
For.
Councillor Neeson.
For.
Councillor Nurden.
For.
Councillor Peck.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Pratton.
For.
Councillor Riley.
For.
Councillor Roper.
For.
Councillor Ryman Tubb.
For.
Councillor Shaw.
For.
Councillor Thomas.
For.
Councillor K Vincent.
For.
Councillor S Vincent.
For.
Councillor Ward.
For.
Councillor Wymark.
For.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 18.
That's 38 for and 2 abstentions, so that's carried, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. As we've heard that, that's been carried. That now takes us to the exclusion of press and public, item 16 on the agenda. I will move that the press and public be excluded from the meeting for the remaining items of business because otherwise information which is exempt, information by virtue of paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, as amended by the Local Government Access to Information Variation Order 2006, would be disclosed to them. So at this point,